Sword of Coming Chapter 978. Qin Pingon and Xiao Imo gradually climbed higher. Homesickness is nothing but people and things from the hometown. Then the old cook's table can always make people feast on the home-cooked dishes, which can always make foreigners worry about it, and it will be practical. On the steps of the mountain road, sitting Zhou Xian and a girl in a pink skirt, the old cook waved his hand. Qin Wanshu, the master who returned home, and Mr. Imo, who returned to the mountain, gave 1,000 blessings from afar. At the mountain gate behind him, Xianwei helped the boy in Zhui draw Dianmao. The incense little man stood on the shoulders of the Taoist priest with his hands on his hips, looked at the back of the mountain master and said silently, "The style of the mountain master is really high. The Lord's treatment of people and things is like a spring breeze." The boy in Zhui was very emotional. He lifted his foot and stepped on the shoulder of the priest Xianwei. He was envious. He said that Xianwei, you have come and gone, never thought that there are such heroes in the world. A character with both saints and sages. The helmsman Pei really treats people with sincerity. Xianwei, you have to send it. Qin Pingon asked with his heart. Do you and Bai Jing see the true face of Zhu Lian covering his face? Earlier, Qin Pingon mistakenly thought that the face skin, made by Zhu Lian himself, was just a Jianghu skill in the lotus flower blessed land. Later, Qin Pingon carefully studied the few disguised face skins presented by Zhu Lian, only to realize that Zhu Lian used some kind of talisman similar to the mountain. The method, supplemented by the Wufu's true flow, is like a cloud and fog that lingers on the face and does not disperse, and it can actually cover the secrets to a certain extent. The way cannot be said to be more sophisticated, but it is more subtle. For example, Qin Pingon was still unable to detect the truth under Zhu Lian's two-layered skin when he was in the Jade Pure realm before, so this time, we should ask Zhu Lian for advice. This means that the Lotus Flower Blessed Land in the past only talked about pure warriors getting involved in cultivating immortals, and Yu Zhini of the Hushan school of Songlai country may not be the first person in the true sense. Zhu Lian of the Jianghu generation is the one. Xiao Imo replied, if you observe carefully it's okay to come, but Mr. Zhu doesn't want people to see his real face, which must be some unspeakable difficulties. Xiao Imo naturally does not want to spy on his own. As for whether Bai Jing is looking at each other without authorization so offended Mr. Zhu, Xiao Imo doesn't know for the time being. Qin Pingon looked strange and said, I guess it is rare for Bai Jing to hold back his curiosity and not find out. Xiao Imo wondered, why did you say this, young master? Qin Pingon said in a complicated mood, it's not interesting to not talk about this. It is no exaggeration to say that, looking at the two worlds, the only person who can make Qin Pingon fight against the enemy, involuntarily take a few steps back, seems to be only Zhu Lian, who exposed his face to show the truth. You must know that on the Sword Qi Great Wall, together with the 14th throne of the wilderness, including the great ancestor of Tuyue Mountain and Wen Hai Zhoumi, they never let Qin Pingon take half a step back. When Qin Pingon and Xiao Imo approached, Zhu Lian stood up and said with a smile, I'm busy preparing dinner so the sun will return. The girl in the pink skirt whispered, Master, didn't the rice grains go home together? Qin Pingon smiled and said, she took the Fengyuan ferry home with Zhang Lu Changming and the others. I disembarked at the old dragon city with Senior Song of Shashuguo, and we walked a distance of mountains and rivers together. After that I went with Song. Seniors parted, hurry up, but come here first. Wait a moment, Xiao Imo, would you please pick up the right guardian? In this way, Qin Pingon has been tirelessly specializing in this matter. Before there was the 6-step stance of Shanshan Fist, but now it is the sword light escape method that Ning Yao knows and can master at a glance. The sword light is splendid, as if the afterglow is scattered into a splendor. In the night, the bright moon is gathering snow, and the moonlight is snowflakes scattered. Whenever Qin Pingon's figure occasionally stops in the sea of clouds, dozens of sword lights are condensed into one place again. I always feel there is a very apt analogy, the stupid bird flies first. Xiao Imo smiled and nodded, okay. As soon as he talked about millet grains, Xiao Imo, who was already gentle, became more gentle. Qin Pingon joked, dinner later, we can wait for Xiao Imo and the right guardian to come back together. By the way, say hello to Xianwei and the right guardian of the Dragon Lane and have dinner together. Xiao Imo hurried on his way, first swept to the mountain gate, invited Xianwei and Zhu Yiboy to go to Mr. Zhu's house for dinner, and then went up the mountain after about half an hour. After that, Xiao Mo's body turned into a rainbow and disappeared in a flash, thousands of miles away in an instant. If there is a sea of clouds that can be used as a ferry, the sword light is even more swift. Wuxia is estimated to be far inferior. Thinking of this, Qin Pingon inevitably coveted the Xianxia ferry, which is known as the fastest in the world. I don't know when will Luopao Mountain have a Liuxiao boat? However, Wuxia doesn't seem to be suitable as a long-distance commercial ferry. It consumes too much money from the gods. Most of the top sects use it as a facade. For example, they hold celebrations and specially pick up some highly respected and distinguished mountain monks. In Zhou Xian's house, Qin Pingon had nothing to do. He sat on a bamboo chair under the eaves, weaving an unfinished bamboo basket, next to a rattan lounge chair. When there were no guests, the old cook would lie there. Here on the rattan chair, you can enjoy the coolness in summer and enjoy the snow in winter. Zhou Xian went to the kitchen, put on his apron and was already busy. It was rare for the young master to have dinner together, so he had to cook a hearty meal. Back then when he and Xia Heaton left the blessed land of his hometown, Pei Qian wanted to ask the boxing with the four of the picture scroll. Zhou Xian once said that he was the best cook among the cooks and the best cook among the warriors. The money is too happy and Zhou Xian is let go. It's boring to win and it's impossible to win. Later I heard that Zhou Xian has the reputation of Zhu Lang banishes the immortal in the rivers and lakes, and also has the nickname of the noble son. Pei Qian almost rolled on the floor with laughter. Those fairies in the rivers and lakes are so blind you have to have never seen the world, plus how much heart to be able to shout Zhu Lang face to face with the old cook who was a crooked melon when he was young. It is better for Lao Wei to be more honest and sincere and to talk about this in private. Accompanying Pei Qian to think about it, Lao Wei said that he guessed that Zhu Lian was very rich at that time. He was very rich when he was young, and he was a son of an official who had read a few books. As soon as a man has money in his pocket and is a talented man, he looks handsome in the eyes of women. Pei Qian thinks it is very reasonable. Old Wei doesn't read much and has a lot of knowledge. Qin Wanshu sat aside, his voice soft and waxy, talking to his master about the recent situation on and off the mountain. In fact, the god of Erbao on Luopao Mountain, the famous right protector, can only rank second. The leisurely and trouble-free time always goes faster. Before I knew it, after about half an hour, Xiaomo brought back Zhou Mili from the Fengyuan ferry, and landed at the gate of the mountain. Going to climb the mountain for dinner with the boy in Zhuyi, Zhou Mili jumped up the steps, his face full of joy, the two thin yellow eyebrows like two small benches, sat side by side full of villains who went out to sunbathe sun. Either relatives or neighbors, happy, excited. Go home. The boy in Zhuyi climbed the mountains and said cautiously, Deputy Helmsman Zhou, I met with the mountain master in front of the little one and we talked. The mountain master saw that I was a little diligent and worked a lot, so he agreed to me. Regarding the matter, the newly established Chief Dharma Protector of Riding Dragon Lane is finally in the spotlight. I am willing to recommend me to take up this position. What is Deputy Chairman Zhou's advice? If you and Mr. Pei, both of you feel that I still need to continue to be on the right side of Riding Dragon Lane. I have studied for a few years in the position of the Dharma Protector, and accumulated more contacts and qualifications. Then I will take advantage of the opportunity to eat at the same table with the good person, the Mountain Master, and bite the bullet and refuse this matter, even if I am misunderstood by the Mountain Master. At any rate, it is better than after I took office the virtues were not matched and the things I did were not well-rounded, and in the end the Mountain Master was suspected of being unknown, and then I would be guilty of a big crime. Officialdom is very complicated, but it's not that as soon as the top speaks, the bottom will be able to take a firm seat. If you have a backer, you need to be yourself. Xianwei rolled his eyes when he heard the words. How do I feel that I have been in the arena for many years, and I have been involved in the left guardian of the Dragon Lane. Zhou Mili slowed his pace, pulled the rope of the cotton satchel, frowned, thought about it seriously, nodded and said, We are good mountain masters. Very few people personally recommend who to hold important positions. Do you have confidence in yourself? The boy in Zhu Yi's face lit up. Yes, why not? I am willing to go through fire and water. Not to mention the general guardian of the Dragon Lane who only cares about the left guardian. He has the confidence to be a small helmsman with a newly established subrudder. For example, in the state city, some cronies and confidants with excellent personal qualities and outstanding abilities are all subordinates in the Chuzhou landscape officialdom. Just like raising a flag of a well-deserved general on the battlefield, he can immediately build a whole set of imitation six yamen, and he can pat his chest and feel his conscience. Strong generals, capable officials and officials, All of them are well-informed and easy to handle, and they only talk about collecting all kinds of espionage for the helm, and there is absolutely nothing to say. It was just this move which was suspected of overstepping a bit. It was known in advance by President Pei and Deputy Chairman Zhou, and it was easy to find trouble. It was misunderstood whether it was because the official hat was too small. How dare the boy in Zhui move to the stage early, and those who have made a big deal don't want to be in the public eye. Just like the landscape genealogy of Zhui boy who was secretly included in the bamboo tower lineage, it was recorded in the book, but in fact even the old ancestor Lingjun who was regarded as the minister of the dragon from the Luobao mountain, has not been able to join it so far. Can you talk about this kind of thing? Shouldn't I be beaten to death by the ancestor Lingjun who was able to walk in Beiju Luzhou? It is said that whether Patriarch Lingjun can record his name on the genealogical ultimatum is still in the investigation stage. The key is that the deputy helmsman Zhou once recommended it once, but he was beaten back, saying that it will be discussed in the future. At a dining table, Qin Pingon was of course sitting in the main seat, and Zhou Lian and Xiao Mo sat opposite each other. Xianwei took the initiative to invite Xiao Wanxu to sit on a bench, and Zhou Mili sat next to the old cook. The boy in Zhu Yi was the most special and could not sit on the bench, so he was able to sit at the table. The little guy carried a fingernail-sized wine jar. Just drink some glutinous rice wine. On Luopao Mountain, Daoist Xianwei has a good impression on everyone, but he still likes Xianxia the most. There is no one. The reason why I complained on Qin Pingan's side before was because that girl Xia who was confused provokes Xiao Wanxu. Otherwise, Xianwei, a person who believes that he has been in the arena for many years, why should he do such a superfluous thing that is easy to be hated by others? After Qin Pingan was seated, he took a bowl of rice from Nuance's hands. Seeing that everyone didn't move his chopsticks, he smiled and said, "Don't be stunned, move your chopsticks. Are you still polite here?" Qin Pingan first gave Nuanshu a chopstick for spring bamboo shoots and fried meat, and then put a chopstick of steamed apricot perch for the millet. Julien smiled and said, "It's good to say that the bamboo shoots are available at home, but this apricot perch is rare. It is the first-class river fresh that ordinary immortal families can't eat. Or the master himself caught a few fish in the jumping river. The master has been we didn't want to eat it, so we kept it in the ice tray that was specially used to store ingredients. This kind of food was eaten by the sea base all the year round. This is why the meat is so delicate and steamed. That's it. If it's braised, it's a bit of a waste. You all have to try it. If it's delicious, it has nothing to do with my cooking skills. If you think it tastes average, then you'll have to reflect on it." Qin Pingan laughed at himself. "It's not all close to you, and I can't bear to enjoy the happiness alone. Those of us who like to fish and catch good things with great difficulty, why not walk around the village twice?" When he was a teenager, Lu Xianying often did this kind of thing. He even took Qin Pingan along and walked back and forth between Xinghua Alley and Mud Ping Alley. Looking back on it now, it's really shameful. Millet grains have always been eating very fast. Hearing this, he pretended to chew carefully, shook his head and gave Julien a thumbs up. "It's delicious, it's really delicious. The old cook's craftsmanship is the icing on the cake." Xianwei just picked up a chicken leg, and when he heard this, he quickly picked up a large chopstick with apricot flower perch. He has heard of this kind of fresh water for a long time. Try it? What is the best thing in the world to put on a show that you can't even think about? Money? The boy in Jui was born in a small incense stick. In fact, the food is not delicious. He has no interest in it. Anyway, he can't taste whether it is good or bad. Just because he often comes here to eat, Wanshu specially prepared it for the boy in Jui. Just a small oil dish, just put a chopstick dish into the dish. Compared to ordinary people, it is equivalent to a large table of meals. Julien chatted about something. "Sir, now there are several gates surnamed Qin who have moved from Huaihuang County to the state city. It's like an appointment. It's just over the new year and now they're busy re-editing their genealogy. I want to have some kinship with the young master. Well, these news are all inquired by our guardians on the right side of Long Lane." The boy in Zhu whispered and complained, "This kind of trivial matter is also worth talking about when you bring it to the dinner table, old cook. It belittles Luopeishan and despises me." On the old cook's side, the little guy is not so strict in his speech. Once Julien is easy to talk, there is no taboo. Moreover, although Julien is the big housekeeper of the entire Luopao mountain, he is indeed a high-ranking person, but he can't control himself. The officialdom of Kalongxiang and Julu has been promoted. It is better to manage the county officials now. It's ridiculous to please everyone, which means that no one pleases so as not to give the impression of a flatterer to President Pei. Xianwei said with a tsk. Aren't you the same disciple of Taoist Master Jiao? Zhou Xian ignored the unappreciative Zhu Yi boy and continued to ask, what should I do about this matter? Shall I go and say hello to both the state and county yamen, and let them come and help stop it? Otherwise, those as a music maker who does things after receiving money, his writing will not be vague. When the world was good, the profession of making a genealogy was not seen in the past. Most of them were poor literati who had no fame. They would make a living and only dare to make money secretly. Now it is different. The southern part of Beipingzu there are all over the country, and many have switched careers to do this craft. Qin Pingon shook his head and said, don't worry about it, what is your love? The boy in Zhu Yi decided to be the loyal minister and he said bravely, Sir Shan, this kind of thing can't be ignored. If you're not careful, the uncles and uncles in the state city will be like bamboo shoots after the rain. A lot of them will pop up overnight. Of course they don't dare to come to Luopao Mountain to show their elders. It's just that there are so many people in the state city. If I trust the younger ones, I will go down the mountain after dinner, I will communicate with Bachelor Gao. All the county town temples and land temples under Gao Qinghuang, they're my good friends everywhere, they don't communicate with Gao Ping very often, I still have a little friendship with me. After all, the relationship between Zhou Qinghuang and the people on the other side of the city has been handled in detail over the years. I do it myself and I don't dare to be vague at all. Besides, we are justified on this side of Luopa Mountain. It's not a fake public welfare activity. I'll speak, keep and kill this unreasonable evil spirit. Qin Pingon explained with a smile. It's okay, you don't have to be so inspiring, some of them, my ancestors, are indeed close relatives, distant relatives who no longer communicate with each other, and relatives in name. If you are like this one, stop, it is easy to cut things across the board. It is estimated that even these portals dare not ask people to revise the genealogy. They can't let them deliberately erase the names of my family's ancestors. It is said that I made a special trip to the prefecture for this matter. 2 sets of Qin surname portals greet each other separately, and it is not wrong anyway. There are not many family trees with their own surnames, so other family trees do not have more than one line of Qin family and they are all random. The boy in Zhu Yi was silent for a moment, then said in a daze, the good-hearted mountain master's mind must be as big as 100 Gao Ping. The book chasing app recommended to me by an old book friend who has known me for 10 years. It's so easy to use, I rely on this reading aloud to pass the time before driving and before going to bed. You can download it here. The little guy who was sitting cross-legged for fear of being misunderstood by the mountain master quickly raised his arms and put his fingers together. You can swear to God it's definitely not a slap in the face. President Pei said her master is unique and upright, so in her life she disliked the flattery of others the most. She often taught her, the pioneering disciple, that if she wanted to get along in the rivers and lakes and be friends everywhere, she had to be honest. A spit and a nail. This kind of cheats in the rivers and lakes, that can't be bought by $1,000. How dare a boy in Zhu Yi put his left ear in and the right ear out, he must keep it firmly in his heart. Qin Pingon glanced at Yuanshu and asked, did Pei Qin teach him? The girl in the pink skirt pursed her lips and smiled, neither complaining to the master nor lying. Qin Pingon has a habit. As long as he is in Luopao Mountain, he never delays eating when he drinks. In his own wine shop in Jianqi Great Wall, he often has a bowl of wine and a bowl of yangchun noodles. Xiaomo said, young master, I heard that Bai Chong on the Beiju Luzhou side has officially closed down not long ago. Qin Pingon asked with a smile, who is the guardian of the Dao? Is there any news out there? Xiaomo shook his head and said, I don't know. Bai Chong, the first person of the Northern Sword Immortal, has been in a bottleneck for many years in the Immortal realm. What's more, Bai Chong and Tianwan from Dogwood Peak in Xinjiang, the junior sister of Zhou Zi, if it wasn't for Qin Pingon and Cui Dongshen's cross-cutting, it is estimated that Beisheng's Ascension realm, although the road is not right, is equivalent to calculating the kendo luck of the entire Aquarius for nearly 1,000 years, but at least Beisheng's kendo will be more pure. The future achievements of swordsmanship will only be more lofty. In the final analysis, good and evil are people's hearts but not heaven's hearts. Qin Pingon said casually, either Bai Chong has hired an immortal he can trust and can fight to help protect the customs, or this is a fake news. In fact, Bai Chong is already in the Ascension realm, waiting for the rabbit on purpose, waiting for someone man destroys his good things. Because of the relationship between Beisheng's only direct disciple Zhou Xian, he had a very tense relationship with He Xiaoyang, the sect master of Qingliang's sect, and even publicly released a very heavy and cruel remark, so that He Xiaoyang would never want to enter the Ascension realm in this life. Then with He Xiaoyang's temperament and methods, if Bai Chong really did retreat he would never stand idly by, and this sect master He's wrist is definitely not bad and he is the best at evaluating the situation. The turmoil in the Ghost Valley, especially the shot of the ghost in Jingguan City, Gaoqing, is the result of He Xiaoyang seemingly doing nothing but doing everything. He Xiaoyang treated guests like this. Of course Qin Pingon was not polite to her. He quickly reciprocated at the accompanying city. Cultivation in the mountains. If you want to be more clean, don't get too involved with the world. Blindfolding method. The possibility of ecstasy formation is more likely. Zhu Lian smiled and said, if I were someone else I would be afraid that Bai Chong would be in retreat, which is not false at all. But Bai Chong is confident that he will successfully break through the border and exit the customs very quickly. This is the most troublesome thing. It's not possible to get in the way, but it's just waiting for the rabbit. During the retreat period, breaking the Tao of others is the taboo of the mountain. Even if someone has Tianjun Xiesher as an ally, once Bai Chong makes a sword this time, Xiesher should not be blocked. If one is not careful, even if someone can escape this questioning sword pursuit, the sect's foundation that cannot be moved, I am afraid it will be difficult to protect. Qin Pingon nodded. However, intuition told Qin Pingon that He Xiaoyang would definitely take risks for such a once-in-lifetime opportunity to delay Bai Chang's breakthrough and become a sword cultivator in the Ascension realm. Now it depends on the chess skills of both sides. Xianwei wondered, who is someone? It sounds very powerful and it can interfere with the retreat of a great sword fairy? Or is it equal to being an enemy of half a sword cultivator in the Ascension realm? Endless calculations with each other? Zhu Lian smiled and didn't speak. Zhu Lian, who was accustomed to sitting cross-legged on the bench, raised his wine bowl and took a sip. Qin Pingon didn't want to say more about the matter and changed the subject. How is the situation in Lotus Root Blessed Land? Zhu Lian put down the white bowl and said, it's a bit miraculous. I just said that not long ago in the Songlai Kingdom, there was a local temple that was not built by the imperial court. The incense was worshipped, and finally the golden body was impregnated, and he was able to appear and manifest his spirit. Although the golden body of the water is not high, according to the golden and jade genealogy issued by the Dali court, he has just entered the rank of Qinglu and was transferred from Su officials. Although they are incomparable to those gods of mountains and waters, it is the first time in a blessed land that the gods who are not anointed by the imperial court bear the incense of the people, and then show their spirits in gold. Xiaomo nodded and said, it's really a good thing to have 2 and 3 again. Xianwei was stunned. What? You guys still have a private blessed land in Luopao Mountain? Good Qin Pingon, Qin Dashan Master, can really pretend to be poor. No matter how rich you are, you must learn how to walk in brocade clothes at night and ride thin horses for senior officials. Besides, this kind of thing is also hidden from me, thinking that I am a fake Taoist priest who has not given the ultimatum, so treat me as an outsider, right? Qin Wanshu smiled and corrected in a soft voice. Master Xianwei, we are us. Xianwei smiled bitterly. Yes, it's us, we are in the mountains. The boy in Zhu Yi didn't need anyone to remind him, he raised his fingers again. I swear that everything I heard at the dinner table today will be hidden in my stomach, and I will keep my mouth shut when I walk out of the mountain gate. Xianwei thought for a while. With his status as the gatekeeper of Luopa Mountain, and his own shallow Taoism in Beipingzu, if he went to that blessed land, wouldn't he have to pretend to be a Taoist priest and immortal? It was supposed to be. Qin Pingon asked, how about Chao Yingxiuxing and Chao Yang's practice of boxing on the back of the mountain? Are they all going well? Zhu Lian nodded and said, Chao Yin's aptitude is good. Although she has not broken through the realm, she has already touched the bottleneck of the Sevuing realm. Chao Yang's roots are heavy, she is willing to endure hardships, and she is quick to learn boxing. She will soon be in the 5th realm of martial arts. It is a manufacturable material. If he can, I think Chao Yin can actually practice martial arts. Wait until Chao Yin becomes a cultivator's golden core or a martial arts golden body in the future. Then he will make a choice and there will still be some profit. Parting ways, but actually reconciling with each other, and being able to form a pattern in which the lake water does not violate the river water, is even more of Chao Yin's good fortune. If a Qi practitioner wants to practice martial arts and be successful in his studies so as not to go astray, there are two extremely difficult thresholds to cross. In addition to his own qualifications, he must either have a unique family background or be able to find a teacher with the guidance of a master, and at the same time, there is a complete set of personal teaching methods and Taoist secret books in the Immortal Mansion as support, both of which are indispensable. In this way, let alone Aquarius Island, even if you look at the vast world, there are not many such mountain gates, which can be called one of the few. Even if it is his own Luobao mountain, he would not dare to say that he has found a stable path. How do others learn the way to climb the mountain of my son? Another example is Xianxia, who is now not only a pure martial artist who is the bottleneck of the distant travel realm, but also a hidden immortal, and also a Confucian Qi trainer in the strict sense. Way to go. However, Xianxia's cultivation path is still difficult to be imitated by others, because he is too particular about his state of mind. In the past years in the blessed land of lotus flowers, the national teacher Xianxia was already known as the Wu Zong Sherwen sage. Qin Pingon intends to put Chao Qingqing next to Xianxia, which is a kind of expectation from his husband to the proud students. He hopes that Chao Qingqing can be better than the blue. Go further. Qin Pingon said slowly, I had a question boxing session with Yi Yunyun at the exiled Immortal Peak in Xindu Mountain, and she didn't deliberately hide her secrets. So Pushun Yunkatang was transformed from the mysterious boxing path of those immortal pictures. I still understand a little bit. Besides, Yi Yunyun's Yunkatang has always been open to the public. Except for the boxing method passed down by the ancestors, I am willing to spread boxing for martial artists from all over the continent. Besides, I have some experience. I just plan to do it in the near future. It is compiled into a book, and a copy may be given to Yi Yunyun in the future. And our Qingping sword sect is now an ally with Pushun. I believe that as long as the disciples of Pushun's genealogy travel to Aquarius, they will definitely come to Luopao Mountain to visit. The bridge acts as a connection, the boxing principles are naturally similar, and the two sides can better each other's martial arts. I am worried that Chao Yin is late in learning martial arts. The true meaning of this boxing method I figured out is not perfect after all. A person walks into the patriarch's hall from a side door, and it is easy to carve a scorpion and turn a tiger into a cat. If one is not careful, it will delay a good seedling. Zhou Xian smiled and said, Young master, just feel free to teach boxing, I'll just keep an eye on the next thing. Qin Pingon raised the wine bowl. Go one. In fact, Sun Yuanji has been taking this path for a long time, but Zhou Xian taught boxing and preached the preaching, and the number of paths was too obscure, so she has been kept in the dark. This is also the fundamental reason why Sun Yuanji is clearly qualified and so diligent in boxing, but he is not happy to break through. You must know that Zhou Lian's own boxing technique in the Lotus Flower Blessed Land is already known in the world for its speed of breakthrough. Qin Pingon didn't say anything about it. Anyway, it's a good thing for Sun Yuanji. A pure warrior, the better the foundation, the higher the achievement. There are Sun Yuanji first, then Chao Yin. Zhou Lian intends to use more successful cases to help Luopao Mountain pave a new mountaineering road. There are fewer passes, lower thresholds, and wider roads. I can't really think that he is just an old cook with an apron. He cooks 3 meals a day himself, and it doesn't take much time, so he has to find something to do. Wei Xian asked curiously, Master Qin Shan, you said Yi Yunyun, but that Tong Yezhou Huang Yiyun? Qin Pingon nodded and said, It's her. Why, Daoist Xianwei has heard of it. Xianwei grinned and said, I once wandered around a Xinjia ferry and I heard a lot of people say that this female martial arts master likes to wear yellow clothes to walk down the mountain with high boxing skills and a better person. Qin Shanju, this is in the field of competition, is it a win or a loser? A few years ago when I was still wandering on the rivers and lakes, I found that the monk of Aquarius Island, only a few people would have a few good words about that Tongyi's Hao, which had a bad reputation. The suzerain was Wei Ying, the great sword immortal, the old immortal Lu Yonglu in Qingjing Mountain, Yao Jinji, the majestic Daquan Empress, and the legendary Huang Yiyun. Qin Pingon smiled and said, It was a draw. The boy in Zhu said suddenly, That's a win. Xianwei wondered, How did you come to the conclusion? The boy in Zhu looked at an idiot. Sir Shandu always has a style of demeaning himself and raising others, so I need to ask? Xianwei Daoist, what's the matter with you? Otherwise you can teach Pei to be like this on the rivers and lakes. A well-known good apprentice. Qin Pingon felt that there was an opportunity to remind the great disciple of Kai Shan, and he touted his master like this. I would be ashamed if you didn't blush. Although Millet didn't chat much, she was definitely the happiest one. When the good man mountain master is not at home, gather with the old cook to eat together. It is lively and you will not feel deserted, but the good man mountain master is not at home. It seems that something is wrong after all. I can't tell the truth anyway. The good man mountain master is at home just the best. Xiao suddenly said, thank you for the dog, I will solve it. Zhou Xian smiled strangely. Xianwei is used to eating with a bowl, so he raised his head. Now, solve it? Why does it sound weird? If Mr. Mo hadn't spoken, if someone else said such a thing, Xianwei would have thought it was a murderous Jianghu slang. Qin Pingon teased. Forget it, if you can't beat others you will definitely not be able to drive away. Really irritates her. Miss Xia will distance herself from you and Luo Pashan, and simply pay for it out of her own pocket and throw money at her. Buying a house in the town and settling down, or if she is more cruel she will buy one of the 3 mountains near Luopa Mountain, Tiaoyu Mountain, Fiolu and Tiandu Peak, and become neighbors with us, then she can be justified. Sitting on the roof every day staring wide-eyed at the scenery on this side of Luopa Mountain, do you think it's a good idea? Xiao Mo was devastated for a while, and Bai Jing's style was not a possibility but a certainty. Millet Grain caught the key at once. So that girl Xia who just arrived by car is so rich? Nowadays who wants to buy a certain mountain in the western mountains, the price is not cheap. In the past when Pei Qian was a small black charcoal she thought about saving money all day long. One day she would buy the Tiandu Peak without frowning, and the other party made an offer. After saving enough money from the gods, I secretly bought Tiandu Peak first, and then on a certain day in a certain year I told the master about it and wanted to give the master a bigger surprise. As for which day it was and why it was bigger, Pei Qian didn't tell Zhou Mili. Now Zhou Mili felt that he was naive at that time. Every few days he asked how much Pei Qian was missing, and it was annoying to ask Pei Qian. As a result, for a long time, Pei Qian was not willing to take her stubbornly. But Zhou Mili was wronged and handed over to the piggy banks kept by Sister Nuanshu. Pei Qian ignored her for a day, and she did not add troops and horses to her gold and silver mountains for a day. Later, for some reason, Pei Qian took the initiative to accompany her on a mountain tour. On the first trip, she hurriedly drove a little Qianshan, camped in Anzhai into the capital and successfully joined forces. Qin Pingon smiled and said, he is indeed a very big landowner. Xiaomo is full of helplessness. Bai Jing is indeed rich, and they are in the ascension realm of the same age. In terms of strong family background and ability to make money, Bai Jing may be second only to the one who once worked with the accountant scholar, to make abacus and partner to earn money. Someone with money. Qin Pingon turned his head and asked, Xiaomo, why didn't she go up the mountain with you today? Xiaoma said with a headache. She was busy going around the town to post signs. She used to go to Fulu Street and Taoya Lane. She felt that there were a lot of rich people there. As a result, I was caught in Taoya Lane 2 days ago and I was almost beaten. The other party heard that she was a guy at the New Year's shop in Xianxia, so he didn't care about her. Julien smiled and said, if you really want to do it, you can push and shove at most. Miss Xia will definitely not fight back. Maybe she will accidentally slap her foot or hit the wall, and then return to Qilong Lane with a bruised nose and a swollen face. Show Xiaomo a good look at how much she has been wronged outside. Xiaomo smiled helplessly. This kind of thing, today's Xiego can really do it. Can't be said that she was joking. In the final analysis, Bai Jing, like his Xiaomo, used some kind of ancient secret technique to strip out a smaller Bai Jing with a relatively single personality. After Xianwei heard about this, his impression of the sable-cap girl changed a lot. So she was so willing to make money at Xia, she had to give her a thumbs up and call her a friend. In the eyes of Daoist Xianwei, who is used to living in poverty, the most helpless thing in the world is just 2 words: no money. Qin Pingon glanced at his doorman, feeling complicated. You have no money now, but the first coin in the world, if the records of the Confucian temple are correct, seems to have been minted by you. At the beginning, as the money to buy the way to enter the Liju cave, it was bought with the Dali court to welcome the spring, to support, and to win the 3 kinds of gold and copper coins. I don't mention it myself, I only say that the copper coins themselves are of excellent quality, which has long been highly praised by everyone in the famous spring of Aquarius. But on top of this carved mother money, there is still more unique, ancestral money, the ancestral money that spends money on snow. Must be in the home of Liu's family in Aizhou. As for the Qi practitioner, it has always been a mystery what appearance he chooses to show. In the prison of the Sword Qi Great Wall in the past, the criminal officer Hao Su was accompanied by two maids who had the status of master and servant, but they were more like fellow Daoists of their own cultivation. Qin Pingon met them for the first time. It was by the stream. There was a woman in a trouser's clothes and a little Huansha. She is the maid next to House's eldest disciple, Du Shanin. She goes by the pseudonym Jiqing and is the incarnation of the ancestral money of Gu Yuqian in the world. It's just that Changming and Jiqing in terms of Daoling are still a little far from the first coin in the world, Zuchuan. In the process of raising the rank of lotus root blessed land before, in the process of smashing the gods and money like rain, Zhang Lulong life was the most keen-eye, and due to the blind date on the Dao she was the first to discover a piece that could not be revealed in the mountains and rivers picture scroll. It was a woman with an ethereal figure in the human world of the blessed land. She was secretly flipping through a book in a scholarly family on the border of the northern Jin kingdom. This woman, who was temporarily named Scholarly Fragrance by Ji Sifeng, was named by Ji Sifeng. The whole world is condensed from the literary and literary incense. She belongs to the manifestation of the Tao in a certain sense. There are several worlds, a total of 72 blessed places. There are well-documented ones. Together it seems that there have only been 10. 7 similarly exist. Zhou Xian smiled and said, I have received a lot of invitations on the mountain recently. All of them are kindly inviting you to be a guest outside with all kinds of excuses, all of which can be compiled into a book. In short, there are all kinds of strange reasons. Many it's still the Xianfu sect with no friendship at all, and there are some southern mountain monarchs I don't pay attention to them. As for some people who are quite familiar with our Luapa mountain, as long as the matter is not urgent, I will arbitrarily advocate for the sun to politely decline. For the rest, I will reply to a letter saying that the mountain owner is temporarily traveling away, and the mountain owner needs to decide by himself. Those invitations have been collected. I will let the warm tree move to the bamboo building. There is a small basket which is important. Yes, I put them all at the front and the sun has some flips to look at. A cultivator, if he spends too much energy on these things and waste his time without talking about it, it is easy to drain his mind and it is extremely exhausting. Qin Pingon nodded, took a sip of wine from the bowl, looked soft and said softly, maybe for Luo Pashan and me, it's just a lot of secret letters and invitations that are troublesome. For the host who issued the invitation, no matter what their respective reasons are, it can be roughly determined that for them, it must be a rare event. Otherwise they will never send a letter to Jiasfeng Jianfang easily, so you can decline the invitation, but don't think the wording on the invitation is ridiculous. Zhou Lian immediately restrained his expression and said solemnly, only your son can say such heart-to-heart words. Qin Pingon originally wanted to give a reward, but when he saw Nuan Shu nodded vigorously, Xiaomi began to applaud silently. Xianwei is even more sincere, and Zhu Yiboy feels that he has heard some teachings from sages, and only hates that he has no pen and paper at hand. There are only a few people at a table. So Qin Pingon had to swallow that word back in his stomach. Wei Xian asked curiously, why didn't Bai Xian return to Luopao Mountain together? What did he do in Xiandu Mountain? Qin Lingjun and Bai Xian are very familiar with Xianwei, but the two sides are still a little different. Qin Lingjun likes to ask questions and chat about melon seeds. Bai Xian doesn't talk much. They all carry only a purple sand pot with wolfberry tea. Every time they arrive at the gate of the mountain, they ask the Daoist master Xianwei for some advice on the rivers and lakes. It is obvious that they need to lay a foundation for the future trip down the mountain. Isn't it just to draw an invincible hand with people asking sorts so that the spectators on the side will cheer? Qin Pingon smiled and said, this uncle stayed there to practice swords. Now it is like someone urging him to break through. He will not return to the sword platform for the time being. It is estimated that at least he is in the Dragon Gate realm. Bai Xian is willing to take the initiative to move his nest. Otherwise he will have no face to come back. After a dinner, Nuan Shu and Xiaomi helped clear up the dishes. Qin Pingon left Zhu Lian's house, went outside the bamboo building and sat alone at the stone table by the cliff. The gray mountain in the north and Qin Pingon, who was facing the cliff, turned their heads and looked at the moment. The Tiandu Peak on the left is a close neighbor. It is closer to the Luopao Mountain than the Jumping Fish Mountain and Fiolu, but it covers a vast area. The Huimeng Mountain has been taken into the bag by Luopao Mountain and has become a vassal mountain, but this Xindu peak with a great name has always been owned by a central immortal mansion whose mountain gate was similar to that of the Huangliang school earlier, and it is the same as the belt. The peaks are different. They never interact with Luopao Mountain. There are not many monks in the mountain. There are only a dozen people. They like to live in seclusion and stay at home. If it was a monk from the two mountains, the tops of the mountains at each station were relatively distant, and the Luopao Mountain was higher. Therefore Xindu Peak does not hinder the broad vision of the top of Luopao Mountain. Qin Pingan's figure turned into a dozen sword lights, and he came to the top of the mountain, stood on the railing, his arms folded, and looked at the town to the east in the twilight. The lights were dim and Qin Pingan had a panoramic view of those streets. In the small town before, young and strong men and some old bachelors were all willing to take the mud bottle alley, even if they took a detour. As for the peers who are about the same age as Qin Pingan and Song Jisun, they are actually not willing to walk in the mud bottle alley. They occasionally pass by the mud bottle alley, with words like family reunion. One is the orphan who killed his parents, and the other is said to be the illegitimate son of Song Duzhao who was thrown outside. Every New Year's Eve and the first day of the first lunar month, as well as the Qingming festival, the town's various surnames, each door and every household, in addition to the tombs of their ancestors, will have their own common ancestors' tombs that need to be worshipped and incense. The town's surname Qin, of course it's not a big surname, not among the 4 surnames in 10 clans on Fulu Street in Taoya Lane, but there are several branches. When Qin Pingan was young, he used to go to the grave with his father to worship his ancestors. When someone bumped into them, those men surnamed Qin, who were originally called wives, uncles according to the folks, didn't look very good, but because of the ancestral rules passed down from generation to generation, they did not stop the descendants from giving them to the old man. The principle of hanging paper on the ancestors' graves did not say anything ugly, but on the first day of the first month of the first year, Qin Pingan found that the paper hanging on the New Year's Eve yesterday had disappeared. It was thrown into the field below the grave. The child did not care about being sad, jumped off the field ridge, carefully picked up the discarded red paper, and was at a loss for a while, wondering if it would be taboo to repress the hanging paper in his hand under the gravestone, but if he just took it home and worry about breaking the rules. A helpless child standing alone in the fields for a long time, not angry, just empty in his heart. After that year, Qin Pingan only went to the graves of his parents. Between fields, between heaven and earth. Qin Pingan sat on the railing, took out the sword-raising gourd, raised his head and took a sip of wine. Julien's house, Xiaomo and Xianwei and the boy and Zhu were all left behind. When he had nothing to do, Julien brought a chess pot and played chess with Xiaomo. Xiaomo learned chess very fast and his chess skills were so powerful that he could achieve a realm a day. The boy in Zhu was about to sit on a chess piece that was lifted from the chessboard. Xianwei smiled and picked up a chess piece from the chess jar and put it on the table. The boy in red clothes asked what. Xianwei laughed and said that you are talking too much. What kind of onion are you, dare to be so presumptuous with the new chief protector of Riding Dragon Lane? As for the rebellion, the boy in Zhui started bickering with Daoist Xianwei, making a lot of noise. Xianwei remembered that Huang Yiyun again and asked in a low voice, "Old cook, how beautiful do you think that Yi Shanzhu is? Do you think if we saw her would we be tempted?" Zhu Lian smiled and said, "I don't think so." Xianwei sighed, "We're fine here but there are few strange women." Zhu Lian sighed, "It rhymes quite a bit." Xianwei tugged at his collar. If Xiao Dao hadn't had a high vision, how could he be single until now? The boy in Zhu burst into laughter. "Just you? Xianwei, if you are old one day it is not the face of the old cook. It is estimated that you are not as kind as the old cook." Zhu Lian smiled and said, "What about me?" The boy in Zhu pretended to hiccup and turn the pages. The moonlight in the spring night, the light clouds and mist, is always a place for young people to have fun. It's a pity that the old man is not too young and he has not yet settled down, so Xianwei Daoist is a little worried. He can't be alone all the time. Look at this old cook, he is a not very good example. The talented man is the prime minister in white clothes. The prodigal son walks through the flowers and is always romantic. Zhu Lian twisted the chess piece in one hand, scratched his head in the other and said with a smile, "The most rascal in a hurry," with a young man turning his head white. Zhu Yan also turned away from the mirror and secretly exchanged for cherry red and plantain green. Xianwei chewed on the meaning and asked tentatively, "Old cook, when you were young, did you also have a very touching story of men and women?" Zhu Lian said solemnly, A gentleman who has read the Book of Sages, and sages will not fight with women casually. Xianwei smiled and said, like me, like me. The boy in Zhu Yi laughed until his stomach hurt. Like Gao Ping, you both are like. By coincidence, the three of them looked at Xiaomo at the same time. Xiaomo felt helpless and said, it's like. When Qin Pingon returned to the bamboo building, he found that Nuanshu was guarding the door and said with a smile, I have the key. Qin Nuanshu was stunned on purpose and Qin Pingon smiled. It's okay, I just went into the room and sat down for a while. The first floor of the bamboo building is spotless. There is a pot of verdant iris on the desk. It is not an Immortal family property. It is a warm tree that was relocated from the mountain stream in the early years and is well taken care of. Previously, the of Jiui Mountain, in order to congratulate his husband on restoring the position of the Confucian temple, also gave a pot of calamus, but it was Wenyun calamus. Of course, it is not an ordinary thing. It can condense a droplet the size of a fingernail. This pot of Wenyun calamus was donated by Qin Pingon to the girl in pink skirt. Now she is responsible for taking care of it carefully. Half of the Wenyun's pure water droplets are left in the lotus root blessed land, and the remaining half is left to Qin Wanshu. In the mountains and streams there are long rivers, Longshu River, Tiefu River. Just because it is a long-lasting cultural gain, there is no immediate possibility, so the price of Jiui Mountain calamus will not change on the mountain. The sky-high price, of course, the pots of calamus with 3,000 years of Dao age, have to be calculated separately. Qin Pingon took out stacks of books from the objects close by, which had already been classified into different categories, and placed them in different positions on the bookshelf together with the warm tree. In the same way, both have obsessive-compulsive disorder, but Qin Pingon is not as serious as the latter. Finally, Qin Pingon gave Nuanshu a stack of books. The girl in the pink skirt held the book in both hands and bowed in thanks. Nuanshu planned to leave without disturbing the master. Qin Pingon brought a chair over and said with a smile, read a book with me for a while. She put the book on the table temporarily, picked up another book, one big and one small, and read it together. Qin Pingon suddenly smiled and said, it's good that there are not many people on the mountain, and the warm trees don't need to be too tired. Thinking about it this way, the mountain master's anger was relieved about being dug up by his own students. Otherwise, Sect Master Cui thinks that some things can be turned over here. That would be too naive. Qin Wanshu hesitated for a moment, then said softly, Master, Sect Master Cui sent me a letter saying in the letter that you will be home soon. Let me say hello to Mr. Zhu, cook more carefully, and also I made a list, wrote your favorite dishes, and at the end of the letter I told me not to tell me about it. Qin Pingon smiled and said, go back and find him to settle the account. Wanshu hesitated, but Qin Pingon said, what if he guessed what he dares to say and thinks I will settle the account with him? Forget it, or let you not be embarrassed, I will pretend to do everything. Have no idea. Wanshu smiled shyly. Qin Pingon laughed at himself for no reason. Actually, I don't know how to be this gentleman. I'm worried, very worried. Wanshu raised his head, thought about it, and smiled sweetly. Master, anyway, Sect Master Cui knows how to be a good student, so he can worry about it as well, but don't worry so much. Qin Pingon was stunned. That's right. There was only the sound of flipping books in the house, and Qin Pingon said casually, Wanshu, do you occasionally worry about the state? Wanshu raised his head and blinked. Qin Pingon smiled and said, I have to make a statement not to urge you to practice, but to worry that you have an idea and I am embarrassed to speak. I am a mountain owner and I often go out and don't stay home all year round. It's really outrageous, so I thought ask your thoughts. If you don't have such thoughts, then let them go. If you have, don't feel embarrassed. I will think about the strategy first today and I can start preparing tomorrow to ensure that it is safe and sound. Wanshu hurriedly shook his head and waved his hand. Master, no need. Qin Pingon smiled and rubbed her head. Then don't worry. Wanshu smiled brightly and continued to look down at the book. Pei Qian Chao Qingqing Mr. Zhang Xin Yuanji. All of Luopa Mountain. In fact, the master sees it in his eyes and puts it in his heart. Of course, there is that lazy guy who likes to slap swollen faces and make fat people all day long. The room on the first floor of the bamboo building is small, but there are many treasures. In addition to the painting at the time, presented by Wu Shuangjing on the wall, at the Nehiguan market, a bright and prudent ink stone was presented by the little monsters. And there was also a landscape with a thin meaning presented by Lin Qingqing, the guest of Qiu's family in Yuzhou. Leo Kengshan yellow badge. At this moment they were all placed on the desk by Qin Pingan. During the discussion in the Confucian temple, Xianxia opened the bungalow in the Parrot Island. Qin Pingan had no cash at the time, so he owed some debts to Lu Qiqing and Mrs. Yen Yen, and also bought some favorite items. As for all kinds of mountain treasures that should not be placed in the study room, there are not a few. For example, in Beiju Luzhou, the Suiyun sect Yangyun Peak, it is not just kindness but difficult, and obtained a Sanlang Temple spiritual treasure armor, a soldier's golden armor. There is also the white jade Ganoderma lucidum sent by the immortal Yunpi of Jiazeng Xiangguan. In addition, in Shualongzong, the northern sect Master Sun Jia gave a pair of bull-roared fish, and at the southern sect, Shao Jingji gave a midge called Xiamagio on the mountain. Before Yezhou they were given to them respectively. There is also the Jun Qingyu Xiang jade card given by Li Yuan, but unfortunately it has been given to Fan Junmao. Otherwise it will be given to Qin Lingjun as a congratulatory gift for Luopao Mountain's Guardian Mountain and Zwa Fa, or as a gift for Qingping Sword Sect. The enshrined Old Mama Qiudu is a good choice as a return gift. I don't know how long it took. Qin Wanchu read about half of the book, got up quickly, took the book and left. Qin Pingan said that he was going to take a walk and sent her back to the house, only to find that the millet was standing upright. As the door god, Qin Wanchu quickly apologized to her. Xiaomi grinned, and the two little girls waved goodbye to Qin Pingan together and went to chat. Qin Pingan returned to the bamboo building and sat on the stone table by the cliff again, pretending not to know, and after a while he turned his head and looked surprised. There was a little lotus figure sitting at the table, just jumped out of the soil, then jumped to the stone table and finally jumped to the stone table, sat at the table supported on the ground with one hand and shook his legs gently. Qin Pingan smiled and put the little guy on his shoulders and looked into the distance together. He was old-fashioned and told the little guy some interesting things about this trip. One spoke carefully, the other listened patiently, and Qin Pingan finally murmured, "I've gone home and am fine today." Sort of coming. Chapter 979. At Maoshi, the sky is slightly bright, the mountains are foggy, the weather is fresh, the morning dew condenses on the flowers and leaves, round and round, swaying and shy to speak. With a cotton wrap under his arm, Qin Pingan chose a path to the back mountain and walked alone, feeling relaxed and happy. After stopping, Qin Pingan turned his head to look. After a while he saw a rickety old man walking quickly, breaking a flower branch and holding it in his hand. This kind of thing, in the eyes of ordinary people, Mi Jianxian to do it is romantic, and the old cook in front of him to do it is a little bit old and shameless. Zhou Lian clenched his fist against his abdomen, and wrapped his hand around the flower branch like a sword. He raised his voice and said with a smile, "It's better to catch up sooner rather than later. This is how I met the young master. The sun always does things like this, quietly and resolutely, in the spring breeze and the rain. Yesterday I wanted to teach boxing for Chao Yin and Chao Yang, and I came here early this morning. People in the world often mistakenly think that the world travels far away, just walking on two legs, wandering away from home, thousands of mountains and rivers. In fact, it is not the case. Every time you think about something and achieve something, it is a journey of your mind." Qin Pingan stood by the side of the road, waiting for Zhou Lian to follow, walking side by side, and asked, "Under the tree and climbing the heights, there is no need to stop those outside visitors?" Both of them are surnamed Xiao. One is the direct disciple of Qin Pingan's martial arts, and the other is the eldest disciple of the blind Taoist Jiao Sheng. They are probably similar in temperament, and because of their similar backgrounds, Zhao Shuxiao and Zhao Denggao usually have a good chat. Come, plus Zhou Junqin, Tianjur and Cui Huahua from the two shops on the other side of Riding Dragon Lane. It's a small hill, but it's not so noticeable. Zhou Lian nodded. The official government has secretly released news, and foreigners are not allowed to approach Luopa Mountain casually. Our Chuzhou inspection customs clearance is strictly strict. 1 to 2 visits can be regarded as helping to stop many people who come here to seek Taoism. I didn't dare to have any complaints when I asked the martial artist. After adapting in the past few years, the rules of the Dali court have really been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. It's not a joke. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "As expected, it is more useful for the government to speak." Zhou Lian said, "I guess it's not the prefect Wu Yuan, let alone the meaning of the county guards of Baoshi and Longquan. The officialdom is too much and am worried about superfluous, maybe it's." Having said this, Zhou Lian lifted the flower branch and pointed to the sky. It was the order of His Majesty the Emperor Dali. Qin Pingan nodded and said, No surprise it was Song He's will to woo you on. Zhou Lian smiled and said, I have a heart. So Zhou Lian asked curiously, since His Majesty the Emperor is so sincere, he personally participated in the wedding banquet and invited the son to come out in person. Why didn't the son agree to Li Song's role as the national teacher? Are there any concerns? In the public and private, in the affection and reason, the son of his own, succeeding Cui Yu as the national teacher of Dali is a matter of public expectation, and it is a matter of mutual benefit, there is no doubt about it. Of course in this way the son will be distracted. There are too many things at the bottom of the mountain. After all, the Dali court is not a small country, it occupies half of the country in Aquarius. Zhou Lian is familiar with the temperament of the sun. The energy is in the capital of Dali and the capital of Luojing. At the same time, the most profitable person is naturally the emperor of the Song dynasty in Dali, because once the son is willing to serve as the national teacher, it is equivalent to the king of Songmu unless the emperor takes the initiative to take the throne. The datong will be passed on to Guizhua in the form of brotherhood, otherwise Songmu the king of Luo will never be able to go further. Qin Pingon nodded and said, I have a lot of concerns. Zhou Lian didn't ask in detail, then take it slow, wait and see. Seeing that the young man had a cotton wrap under his arm, Zhu Lianxiao asked, Is it a gift for those two walled people? Qin Pingon explained, It was some rare books that were given to Chao Yin Zanyala Qingtong, who is now the official guest of Qingping Sword Sect. She previously sent a lot of expensive rare books to Xindu Mountain. I picked some isolated copies that were classified as first class and scattered outside. Zhu Lian smiled and asked, How many isolated books did the son leave to Xindu Mountain? Qin Pingon patted the old cook on the shoulder. Be generous and act generously. Well, that's how I persuaded the proud student at the time. Dongshan listened to it and he asked more questions. There are more rare books left. Do you want to bring more back to Luopa Mountain? Since the student is polite to the teacher, why is the teacher polite to the student? Zhu Lian couldn't help laughing. Sect Master Cui still respects teachers and respects Taoism on the side of the sun. Qin Pingon said, I already have a general framework for Nuanshu's walking. Last night I took the initiative to chat with Nuanshu about this, but she still didn't agree and didn't want me to be distracted by these things. Too sensible, how can I be willing to say half a sentence? Oh, if it was Qin Lingjun I would have pressed Qin Lingjun's head to the ground long ago. Zhu Lian laughed out loud. Maybe this is the difference between raising a daughter and raising a son? Zhu Lian managed to restrain his smile, nodded and said sternly, One thing to say, the breaking of the worm tree is indeed much more difficult than Qin Lingjun. It is much more difficult than Qin Lingjun. When it comes to the illusory literary fortune you can't find it. Nuanshu is most afraid of bothering others, so how could he agree to something like this, young master? Qin Nuanshu was the incarnation of the fire python in the old book-building cultural movement, and now he is in the Longmen realm, so the normal sense of the water descendants walking the river and turning into a jiao is meaningless to Nuanshu. The first pink skirt girl and Xing Yi boy who followed the sun, in fact their personalities are just opposite, one is soft on the outside and tough on the inside, and the other is tough on the inside, and Qin Lingjun may not be soft, that's called cowardice. Qin Pingon said, So in addition to some arrangements on my side, I also need some foreign objects. I plan to buy a pot of Wenyun calamus with 3,000 years from Jiui Mountain. It happened that the of Jiui Mountain took the initiative to invite Mrs. Yan Yan to go there. As a guest, Xiao Jianxian will definitely go with Mrs. Yan Yan. There are only a few pots of this kind of calamus of the Taoist age. It is the favorite of the gods of Jiui Mountain. It is normal to be unwilling to sell it. It's all inevitable and everything is negotiable, but since it is related to the avenue of the worm tree, it has to be another matter. If Xiao Yunyan can't agree with Jiui Mountain, in the future when Lu Jinglong and I travel to China's divine continent, we will definitely visit Jiui Mountain. Having said that, Qin Pingon twisted his wrist and said with a smile, Don't force me to take care of the sheep, leave the money and run away. Today Wei Wenlong, the god of wealth in charge of the treasury, is still in the Golden Core realm. Wei Wenlong is the direct disciple of Sword Immortal Xiao Yunyan. Ever since they parted from Hanging Mountain Chunfan's High, the master and the apprentice have never met again. Qin Pingon wondered if Xiao Jianxian should come to Luopao Mountain first. Zhu Lian suddenly said, Since I want to be the peacemaker for Ant Feng and Baihua Blessed Land, I have to give away that colorful knot. I'd like to trouble you for the next time you visit Blessed Land, and by the way, help me to prove something. The strange book says that does the commander of the Planting Flower Temple really take charge of Huaxin Xianxia? These Blessed Land immortal officials are all women, or there are also male immortals, and I also implore the young master to pay attention. Qin Pingon smiled and agreed. Zhou Xian said, Sect Master Cui previously gave Chao Yin 3 Taoist secrets, corresponding to Chao Yin's view of the sea long men, and how to break the bottleneck of long men. Words, it can be seen that Cui Sect Master is the real master of construction, and he is able to use Chao Yin's small world as the foundation to build large-scale construction and tailor-made. Pei Qian and Sui right side in the time when they practiced Mao's cultivation at the worshipping sword terrace. Both of them also taught a few boxing to the young girl Chao Yang. The young Chao Yin, courtesy name Fengxing Jianxiu, is a bottleneck in the view of the sea. The young girl Chao Yang, nicknamed Wutong, is the pinnacle of martial arts in the 4 realms. When Xingyang Mountain held the Zongmen celebration, as the most important guest, Chao Ping chose to leave early. This hunting envoy was like a guest for the various peaks, and released a signal that couldn't be more obvious, not a hint, but made it clear that the relationship between Xingyang Mountain and the Dali Court is really ordinary. Therefore, Dali is between Luopao Mountain and Xingyang Mountain. If he must make a choice, then Chao Xuanshou has already helped to give the answer. Through Guan Yiran's matchmaking, Qin Pingon secretly reached a 300-year-long covenant with the Chao clan of the Shangzhou Kingdom. Both the monks and martial arts geniuses from the Chao clan can be sent to Luopao Mountain for cultivation, even as long as Chao Qin Pingon can also help introduce them to the sects of Biezhou. When the time comes, the children of Chao's family only need to bring a letter of recommendation from Qin Pingon, such as Taihui Jianzong, who goes to Luzhou in Beiju and Dragon in Nampasizu. Elephant Swordsman. Now there are several more choices, including the Pushun Yunkatang in Tongyi's Hao, the Yunshao Palace in the Chongxian department of the Deyuan dynasty in Beiju Luzhou, and even the Jinyao building in Qingtong. So Qin Pingon planned to let Chao Yin communicate with the owner of the house, Chao Ping. Chao Ping will definitely leave Chao Yin a contact channel. If it is not Chao Ping, it must be how to take a fancy to this side child of the Chao clan. Even if Chao Yin is a sword cultivator embryo, he will not care about Chao Ping, who has achieved the ultimate in the imperial court. It's not a big deal, but since Chao Yin was chosen to practice in Luopao Mountain, it means that Chao Yin, a part of the Chao family, as long as Chao Yin has learned something in Luopao Mountain, the status of Chao's family in Shangzhou Kingdom will rise. Unstoppable. A towering tree. Some originally thick branches will rot and peel off in the wind and rain. Some slender branches will gradually grow into thick branches, and then grow and extend more branches with lush green leaves for future generations to enjoy the shade. It is the blessing of ancestors. Qin Pingon and Zhou Xian came to Haoshan Mansion. The door was opened and the knife was shining in the courtyard. Chao Yang is in the courtyard that has been opened up as a martial arts field, practicing a Chao family's ancestral hob technique, which was born out of the battlefield. The hair on the girl's forehead was condensed into strips by sweat. Stopping at the door, Zhou Xian whispered with a smile. The little girl is too strong. No matter what kind of stakes she learns or what weapons she uses, she's practicing swords. Qin Pingon said, if you don't have the will to win, what else do you need to learn martial arts? According to Zhou Xian, the biggest difference between practicing martial arts and cultivating immortals is that they are the same genius. Qi practitioners can enjoy happiness all the way and break through the situation smoothly. When a few inspirations appear, they are jumping up in the clouds and riding the fog, and the realm climbs up. Wufu is different, not this good luck. Even the more genius, you have to endure hardship. Otherwise you will break through too quickly and you will run up the mountain without stopping too much at each step, and your foundation will be unreliable. The embroidered pillow is also true. When Chao Yang saw the 2 figures at the door, she immediately retracted her sword. The girl looked flustered and at a loss. Mr. Zhu Lao is a frequent visitor to the house and he is amiable, so he is not unfamiliar and has a close heart. But that green shirt really made Chao Yang extremely nervous. She only met Qin Pingon once when she came to Luopao Mountain. Furthermore, the sword cultivators in the world, the golden elixir on the mountain can be called the sword fairy, but there are only a handful of martial artists in the world, like the snow-capped continent with thin martial arts, a continent with mountains and rivers. Only Leigong Temple Peixiang is the only one. That's it. What's more, this young mountain master with a seemingly genial look and gentle eyebrows in front of him also personally taught a great disciple who was also the great master of Xijing. He has also been to the Great Wall of Sword Qi, where the swords are like clouds. He was the last hidden official and he guarded the city alone for many years before returning to his hometown. One by one for Chao Yang, they are all things done by people from the horizon. Therefore, in terms of reverence in the face of Qin Pingon who has countless identities, Chao Yang is definitely more than his master Chao Yin. At this moment, the girl's state of mind was like that of a child of Mongolian school who endorsed loudly, and suddenly found a Confucian sage who was educated in heaven and man standing at the door. A martial arts practitioner who has not yet entered the hall, and meets a great master of Xijing who has gone to the sky on the top of the mountain, will of course treat the other party as a god. Zhou Xian is not surprised that the girl's nervousness is normal. Qin Pingon had also seen others like this. Now others are looking at him the same way. As if the mountains and rivers on the road of life are repeated, the scenery outside me and me are each other's scenery. Qin Pingon crossed the threshold and reminded with a smile. Chao Yang, just now you put away the knife and a pure infuriating qi in your body is gathered. It seems that there are many flaws starting from Higu to Pianli Tsuchi and then the speed is too slow. In addition, when the qi machine reaches Tianfu, it should stop for a while so that the flesh, blood and bones can be warmed up. There must be a water flow around the mountain. Rabbit, Liangqiu and Xia Jushu need to work hard again, turn into waterfalls, and the air machine flows as fast as they can, creating a kind of atmosphere where the dragon hits the secluded pool and splashes thousands of layers of water. At the acupoints of the big bell, it can sound like thunder and penetrate directly to the spring, so you just pursued a steady footstep and deliberately gathered a thin line of qi. There is no meaning anymore, it belongs to the pursuit of tranquility. It is too rigid. If you can follow my suggestion, the Jinqi will flow into the Yongquan acupoint, such as hitting a drum with a fist and hammer. The qi and blood of the Yongquan will surge like a stone falling in the middle of a lake. The water is mighty, don't be afraid of this kind of chaos. You need to know that this is the meaning of martial arts to temper the body, and it is also in line with your Chao family's martial arts. The trend of the clouds steaming and the clouds generated by the turbulent waves, restrained the mind, quickly lifted a mouthful of pure infuriating from the release to the withdrawal, just like a carp jumping over the dragon gate, climbing layer by layer, turning to Guanyin to the back in 4 places really. The qi stops for a while like a dragon pan integrates the sword technique into Chao's heart technique, and controls the true qi like a dragon rolling on the wall, just like a battlefield rushing into an array ready to go, and then the iron cavalry switch comes out. At this time you need to use the sword heart. The method is to imagine that one person is holding a sword, that is, 10,000 cavalry digging an array on the flat ground, rushing to the sun, following the divine way, crossing the wind house like knocking on the door, ascending the height like walking on the ground, and finally returning to the divine court. Chao Yang was stunned when he heard it, fine sweat oozing from his forehead, as if it was more tiring than practicing swords. Qin Pingon asked with a smile, "Don't remember? Then I'll say it again." Qin Pingon repeated it. Chao Yuanyang held his breath and remembered everything word by word. Qin Pingon stood there and said with a smile, "I'll show it again. It will slow down the speed of the flow of the real air. You are not in the realm of the time and you will definitely not be able to explore the flow of my real air, just to see the meaning, just like we laymen look at calligraphy and painting. It's hard to tell why it's an authentic work, but it's good and bad you have to understand, and you will definitely see people punching when you go down the mountain to practice, and the same is true." When Qin Pingon spoke, he stretched out a hand to hold a knife and took another step, just like Chao Yang's previous collection of the knife, and all the details were exactly the same. Chao Yin had also walked out of the house and stood under the eaves of the corridor, daring not to disturb Qin Shan's hiss, preaching and teaching for Chao Yang. Zhou Lian quietly came to Chao Yin's side, crouched on the top of the steps and said with a soft laugh, "Don't learn blindly, kid. This is a route specially set up by our mountain master for Chao Yang. The speed of the steps is very particular. Chao Yang can bring it over immediately and learn to use it now, but if you follow the gourd and draw the scoop, you will only have trouble everywhere, and if you are not careful your internal organs will be affected and you will suffer from it." Chao Yin smiled. It was no wonder that he had just tried to follow Shanzhu Chen's Daoist luck, and he instantly felt annoyed. Zhu Lian smiled and said, "If you really want to learn boxing, you can ask the mountain master yourself. But don't worry about it at all. The demons can't tell the truth. My family's mountain master and people teach boxing. It's a rare opportunity. It's more than $1,000. You can try it out." Chao Yin shook his head and said, I can't chew too much and it is difficult to cultivate qi and practice martial arts. This kid dare not make such unreasonable demands, which will delay the precious time of Lord Qin Shanzhu. Looking at the calm and relaxed attitude of the man in the blue shirt, then looking at Chao Yang's enlightened face full of surprise, and finally watching Shanzhu Qin nodded lightly as if he recognized Chao Yang's drill. The young man thought that this was probably the style of the legendary grandmaster. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Just talking and listening are useless. Walking in a quiet place to practice boxing, no matter how much hard work you put in to improve your physique and skillful tricks, you'll be just like the empty lectures of the old school in the study, and you won't be able to see the real kung fu. Without a lot of sparring and actual combat, you can learn thousands of brilliant boxing moves, or you can embroider your legs. You can easily fall to the ground with just a few punches when you encounter those same level warriors who have few tricks but can integrate the principles of 3 or 2 fists. Yang, why don't you and I help each other?" Chao Yang's face flushed. She really didn't dare. Zhou Xian teased softly, "It's the little girl who is thin-skinned and replaced by Xian." At this moment, the dragon and the tiger are already rushing towards the mountain master. Chao Yin said in a heartfelt voice, "Chao Yang has the most respect for Shanzhu Qin. Every time I talk about Shanzhu with me on weekdays, she is like a different person." Zhu Lian gathered his voice and whispered to the young man, "Don't worry, Chao Yang is only paying respect to our mountain master, and it does not involve love between men and women. The person I like this year is still the old face of last year." Chao Yin didn't think about it at all, but when the old cook said this, the young man blushed instantly. Qin Pingan gently threw the parcel under his arm to Zhu Lian, then reached out and grabbed it, holding a wooden gun on the weapon rack of the martial arts field in his hand. The 5-fingered and fingertip micromoving wooden spear revolved several times in the palm of the hand, like a dragon rolling over a wall, and it was suddenly clenched and the spear tip buzzed and made a dragon roar. Wearing a long green robe and a pair of cloth shoes, Qin Pingan stood in the middle of the courtyard with a wooden gun in his hand, and said, "I just took this opportunity to let me see where you Chao clan's martial artist is based." Qin Pingan's implication couldn't be clearer. It's nothing for Chao Yang to lose his fist, just don't lose the face of Chao's swordsmanship. Let's learn from the same realm. Qin Pingan said, "Wufu asks boxing, there is no status, only boxing skills, no age, only meaning. Chao Yang, if you feel worried about hurting me, of course you can be merciful. I will be in this competition. I would like to express my gratitude to Chao Yang, who is kind-hearted." The girl was speechless. Chao Yin, who was watching the battle under the eaves, always felt that the man in the green shirt in front of him was very different from Shanzhu Qin, who was chatting with them in a friendly manner outside the bamboo building last time. Julien smiled knowingly. The martial artist who came out of the second floor of the bamboo building taught boxing and fed boxing for others. He spoke like this with few words, often more powerful than fists. Qin Pingan narrowed his eyes as if he was about to carry a wooden gun forward. In an instant Chao Yang took a step back with the knife. She bowed her head and bent down, staring at the man whose momentum had changed completely, like a towering green mountain. Intuition told her that the other party only needed to hand out a move and she would die, and it was the kind of suffocating death method that she didn't know how to die. Qin Pingan still stood there. Retreat? Where can you retreat? Why don't you stand against the wall? Or simply break through the wall, escape from retreat and swing the knife a few times in the middle even if you have a fight with me. It is also a reputation if it is spread out. Qin Pingan said so. In fact, Chao Yang's retreat was not bad. This shows that Chao Yang's consciousness is extremely keen. Wu Fu can unknowingly seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. But this is not enough. In Qin Pingan's view, it is still a matter of discarding the root and the last. Qin Pingan's words were actually quite subtle. Otherwise, if you follow the words of Senior Zhulu Cui, if you encounter an enemy you will retreat, but you dare to retreat and retreat. Since you are learning boxing like this, you like to pick up sesame seeds and throw watermelons, then don't learn and starve to death. What kind of boxing should you learn? Going out to beg for food, holding a broken bowl and kowtow when you see someone, it is nothing more than recognizing a few ancestors with different surnames. What shame going back to the grave to worship the ancestors, and you can also claim credit saying that you have recognized more relatives for all of you, more filial piety. As soon as Chao Yang gritted his teeth, he took a step forward. He didn't run straight ahead with a knife, his body moved sideways like a qin yen, and the pure true energy in his body was running at a rapid rate. He was castrated even faster in an instant and he came to the side of Qin Pingan. The girl holding a knife gesture. It is the very famous Daoist dragging away in Chao's swordsmanship. Yang Duck twisted his wrist, the blade was as bright as snow and he slashed at the man from the side. What's the use of just being ruthless? Who can see if you have to waste your energy? I didn't see how Chen Pingon shot. The wooden spear stabbed Chao Yang's forehead with one shot. The girl's head swayed violently and the whole person flew out. And then poked the ground with the tip of the knife several times. Sparks suddenly scattered on the martial arts field, and the girl forcibly turned back to form around the green shirt, walking around the arc for half a circle, and again handed out a slanted upward slash. The tip of the knife did not when he got close to the blue shirt. He was missed by the wooden spear at a faster speed and the blade body. With a bang, it directly hit Chao Yang's shoulder, hitting the girl's shoulder and turning her body in place until Chao Yang returned. God, the point of the stationary wooden spear has been pressed against his neck. Confronting with the strong, the heart is unstable and it will only show the courage of blood. Could it be that you have admitted that you will lose before you make a move and you only want to die quickly? Chen Pingon withdrew the wooden gun. Come again. Afterwards, no matter how Chao Yang launched the offensive, he just couldn't get too close to the one in the blue shirt, no more or no less. During the period, Chen Pingan's wooden spear swept across and smashed the girl's waist severely. Chao Yang was lifted up and the whole person was bent like a bow in the air. Then a piece of wooden handle of the long spear hit the center of the mouth and hit the wall. The posture was like a civet cat in midair, knees slightly bent, stepping on the wall, and using strength to recoil at the green shirt who was strolling in the courtyard. The latter seemed to be too lazy to use the spear to confront the enemy, just raised his hand, putting together, it was like, gently pushing the tip of the knife and then an elbow strike which made Chao Yang's face and fell to the ground. He stabbed the ground and raised it diagonally. This time the girl's figure could not be condensed pure again. Infuriated, he flipped several times in the air and slammed into the weapon rack, making a clattering sound. Chao Yuanyang vomited blood, put one hand on the ground, stood up staggeringly, his eyes were firm, but the arm holding the knife was just the one. Trembling involuntarily at the same time, Chao Yang began to move, always facing the man who was slowly walking towards him. Chen Pingon nodded imperceptibly. The old cook was right. The girl really can endure hardships and learn things quickly. Just like at this moment, I am afraid that Chao Yang himself does not know, and has already used the one taught by Chen Pingon. True airflow path. This is the talent. The master leads the door to practice in the individual and perseveres. In the long run, the disciple does not have to be inferior to the master. Chen Pingan's footsteps were not fast and he said, "It is the most difficult and easy to be discouraged in life. Learning martial arts, the ultimate knowledge is still a person. What kind of person can study what kind of boxing moves and realize a few boxing principles? In casting boxing methods, Chao Yang outside of martial arts have thought about why you want to learn boxing, what boxing you want to learn, you yourself what kind of person is he?" Chao Yang was taken aback. In the end, Chen Pingon laughed and said, "How dare you be distracted now with the enemy?" With a bang, the girl slammed into the wall and slumped to the ground, leaning on the ground with a knife, trying to get up several times in vain, her toes heavily, her back against the wall, and she slowly got up. Chao Yang's eyes flashed and he turned his head subconsciously, hearing the sound of the wall breaking. If she hadn't avoided this, she would have been pierced by a wooden spear on the spot. Zhou Xian smiled and comforted the young man beside him. "Don't worry, every time the mountain master makes a move he is very measured and he is thinking about Chao Yang. If the teaching of boxing only stays on the two things of tricks and boxing, then the mountain master is wasting himself. Because you are an outsider, you don't know that Chao Yang's real suffering at the moment is that her intuition has been deliberately pulled by the mountain owner, and she is sure that if she is careless she will hurt the root and be beaten casually. Breaking the way of martial arts learning is only considered as a discussion. Otherwise it is just a light-hearted feeding of fists. This kind of teaching boxing, as the mountain master said, means too little just because in the final analysis, deep in Chao Yang's heart, there will be a kind of the idea of being invincible, but in fact outsiders feel that there is no suspense between the winner and the loser, but for Chao Yang, the player in the game, it is the difference between life and death. Wufu's fist road is the journey of our life. Every step is down to earth and never fails. If you want to end your hardships, you can only endure more hardships. The details such as the true flow route can be taught and learned, but human thoughts and a body in boxing, if you want to pursue the two purity, you can only suffer more and more hardships, and in every moment, you can't even have the idea of suffering. Zhou Xian smiled and said, "It is estimated that the young master will add another firewood." Sure enough, Qin Pingon did not pull out the wooden spear nailed into the wall and said, "Chao Yang, take a break. I guess you will be unconvinced, thinking that I have learned boxing early and have a high level, so I can only talk to you a few big words. Empty reason, condescending and annoying. It belongs to the Dao pressure technique. Then I will press it again and I will use the 3-level martial artist to learn from you. Just rely on the entry-level boxing of Xianxia and see how many moves you can hold." As long as it wasn't for Pei Qian to teach boxing, even in the exile peak, he kept feeding Yi Yunyun's boxing and finally, by coincidence, helped her to reach the first level of Qi Sheng. Qin Pingon felt that it was not difficult. "It's really. I have accepted a good apprentice, so that being a master, teaching boxing is more difficult than practicing boxing on your own." After that, Qin Pingon used the 3 realms of martial arts to beat Chao Yuanyang to the point of being powerless. In the end, the girl knelt down on one knee and leaned on the ground with a knife. Chao Yang shook her head, still dizzy. Her vision was hazy. The girl's face was full of blood, drop by drop, dripping onto the ground. Chao Yin said in his heart, "Mr. Zhu, will Chao Yang be all right?" In fact, this question is inappropriate. It is equivalent to questioning Qin Shan's method of teaching boxing. If it goes a little further, it is to doubt Qin Shan's intentions. But the boy couldn't help it. Zhou Xian rubbed his hands together and said with a smile, "The mountain master's shot is not light, but not heavy anyway. It is within the range that Chao Yang can bear." As the contemporary head of the Chao clan in Shangzhou Kingdom, Chao Ping still has some knowledge of people and knows how to send Chao Yin and Chao Yang to Luopao Mountain. From today onwards, this pair of teenagers and girls who have never been infiltrated by the secular world can be considered to have truly entered the eyes of their own son. The sun will definitely come here often in the future. To be honest, if the sun returned to Luopao Mountain later, Zhu Lian would have to go to Xindu Mountain to people, for fear that the big white goose was not doing things properly and deliberately restrained the sun with his heart. If Cui Dongshan, who was really beaten with a good abacus, succeeded, then it would be amazing. Is the sun the mountain owner of Luopao Mountain or the mountain owner of Xindu Mountain? When Chao Yang stood up staggeringly, Qin Pingon said, "Now look at it. I will only practice it once. You can learn as much as you can." This set of boxing comes from the Yi clan of Yunkatang in Pushun, Tongyi's Hao, and it is derived from the ancestral 6. The pictures of immortals are named Guanpu, Daojiao, Tamping, Chuqin, Gao Shirxing and bamboo basket fishing for the moon. Yunkatang martial arts are all from the picture and passed to the contemporary mountain master Yi Yunyun. More than 60 pile frames and boxing moves have evolved, and since ancient times there has been a saying that the pile comes from the picture and the boxing goes to the picture, among which there are more than 40 that can be shown to others, and there is no taboo for outsiders to learn boxing. Chao Yang nodded, raised his hand to wipe his face, widened his eyes for fear of missing any punch. After that, Qin Pingon deliberately slowed down and practiced more than 40 stakes and boxing moves for Chao Yang. The threshold for practicing martial arts is not as high as becoming a Qi practitioner or mountaineering practice, but it is really not something that can be learned by throwing a few boxing manuals. It's just a style. Whether it can condense a pure infuriating breath is a world of difference. Can this breath be compared with a fist move? Real integration complement each other and the difference between cloud and mud. Qin Pingon stopped the last punch and asked with a smile, "Do you remember?" Chao Yang took a deep breath. "I remember it all." Zhu Lian just got up and suddenly squatted down again. "Because I saw that my son did not intend to stop work." He rolled up his sleeves and said solemnly, "I will teach you another set of boxing techniques. The Zhuangjiaquan moves are unknown, and they come from the Great Wall of Sword Qi. She is a great female master and even more so. My elders. There may be many monks on the mountain who are called seniors by their own sons. After all, it is a courtesy to go out. But there are not many people who are sincerely regarded as elders by their sons." After Qin Pingon finished the whole set of boxing, as if afraid that Chao Yang would not remember it, he practiced it again and slowed down again. The body frame and footsteps are extremely restrained, but the punches are extremely fast and there is no trace of greasy air. Chao Yang can see that this boxing method is most suitable for female martial arts practitioners. After Qin Pingon closed his fist, he said with a smile, "In the previous 2 battles, you must have 2 minds. It is inevitable to lose a boxing today. You don't have to think too much. It is possible to win a boxing in the future. You need to think more. Chao Yang, I don't care about other martial artists. Everyone has a destiny and everyone has their own destiny. But since you came to Luopa Mountain to practice martial arts, I must remind you that you must first want to save your own life before you are qualified to learn boxing. Hand the fist to win, kill others. Chao Yang clasped his fists with both hands and said in a hoarse voice, Junior, please follow the teachings. Today Shanju Chen's 2 boxing sessions are actually a treatment that only direct disciples have. Face-to-face teaching is appropriate, secret transmission of the heart seal which is called personal transmission. Qin Pingon smiled and said, hurry up and get blood on your face, it's scary in the daytime. Chao Yang said goodbye immediately and walked into the residence in the backyard of the house. Chao Yin sighed in his heart and sure enough Qin Shanju, who no longer taught boxing to others, was the familiar Qin Shanju again. Zhou Xian had already run to pack up the wooden pole and spear, and then erected the weapon rack again. Chao Yang quickly returned here. Afterwards the group drank tea and chatted in the side hall of the main house. They didn't need Chao Yang the maid to do the work. Zhou Xian took care of it, not to mention that he made the tea by himself. Qin Pingon seemed to be addicted to teaching boxing, as if he had found a little confidence in being a teacher from Chao Yang's side. Halfway through drinking tea he took out a scroll from his sleeve, spread it on the desk and called the boys and girls to watch it together. It is an authentic work from Tianshui Zhao's patriarch, and the genuine long scroll is far longer than the length of the desk. It is 3 feet long so that Qin Pingon and Zhou Xian need to stand on both sides to support the jade scroll. Even so, Chao Yin and Chao Yang are still unable to see the full picture of the word. The characters are very large, 1 line at a time. The opening line is, the floods in the bitter and cold place in the 6 years of Yunjia are slightly flat, and the lonely boat in Tsingyi plucks across the river lightly, and the ending 8 characters are, smile across the river, return at night with candles. The words are like spears and halberds and the momentum is majestic, which is simply aggressive. Qin Pingon explained, Chao Yang, the meaning of boxing is not only obtained in the pile frame day after day, year after year. The real good boxing in the world must come from outside the boxing manual. The former teaches us the foundation of martial arts to fight well. Solid, but the latter teaches us to stand out on the road of martial arts. Just like this character, it has both form and spirit. Maybe literati and calligraphy, everyone sees the meaning of the strokes. If you look at Wufu, you can see more meaning and even create your own punches. After a while I will teach you this punch and you will know that what I said is true. Zhou Xian helped put away the scroll and Qin Pingon said solemnly, besides the truth, I can show off my collection with you. The boys and girls looked at each other. Zhou Xian tied the knot of the reel and gently handed it to Qin Pingon. It's nothing to have a rich collection as long as you have some money in your pocket. You can say that the beauty of the collection can overwhelm your peers and it's hard to compare. It is very particular about the connoisseurship of collectors. Qin Pingon smiled and re-entered the square inch of things. The old cook's kind words are indeed true. You must know that when Pei Qian was a child he complained to Lao Wei in private. Xiao Haiten had a sad face and sighed sincerely. The old cook's dog legs can't be learned. Old Wei nodded and said that some people's housekeeping skills are not in Tianqing but not in manpower. In the end Wei Xian did not forget to add a sentence such as your observation and my drinking. After taking their seats again, Qin Pingon planned to leave after drinking a cup of tea and asked, Chao Yin, have you encountered any difficulties in your practice? Not yet. Chao Yin shook his head. With the help of the 3 secret recipes given by Immortal Master Cui, even those who were not enlightened could still learn how to do it step by step. Qin Pingon smiled and said, if you have any questions in the future that you don't even understand, you should ask Cui Dongshan for advice. Although I am also a sword cultivator, my preaching and teaching in this regard are far inferior to Cui Dongshan's. When the time comes, you can go to Jiasfeng Jianfang by yourself, and send the letter directly to Tongyi's house Xindu Mountain. Don't worry about bothering Cui Dongshan. I will tell him beforehand, so if you don't ask it will be a waste. Chao Yin stood up and bowed his thanks and Chao Yang followed him and clasped his fists. Qin Pingon smiled and nodded in greeting and was about to get up and leave, but Chao Yin took the initiative to ask, Qin Shanju, can I talk about my practice experience and then ask the Shanju for advice? Qin Pingon smiled and said, of course you can. Zhou Xian has already added tea to several people. Chao Yin said, Qin Shanju, I think the cultivation of qi practitioners and even the martial arts practice of martial arts are a series of arithmetic and problem solving. Qin Pingon asked with a smile, how do you say it? Dao is like an empty house, so why don't you give an example? Chao Yin gave a specific example of dismantling the tempered physique of a martial artist into flesh and bones. It can be seen that Chao Yin, who is a sword fairy embryo, is not worried about his own practice, but the young man is very concerned about Chao Yang's martial arts. The road. Zhou Xian smiled and said nothing. No guessing, childhood sweethearts. In fact, it is easy to become strangers in the future. Just because the teenager turned the book too fast. Young girls like to fold corners when reading books. Qin Pingon listened carefully, nodded in appreciation. This example is good. Chao Yin was a little shy and said, maybe people with poor qualifications will dismantle them like this. Qin Pingon just wanted to praise the young man again. Your idea coincides with mine. As a result, Chao Yin's statement immediately made Qin Shanju swallow the words that came to his mouth. In fact, there is nothing wrong with Chao Yin's opinion, and it can even be said that it is a very insightful cultivation experience. In fact, Chao Yin is of course a genius. Such a young man is already a qi trainer at the bottleneck of the sea-viewing realm, and he is also a sword cultivator. But the problem is that there are indeed such a small group of geniuses in the world like Ning Yao, Chao Xi, Pei Qian and Chai Wu. They all belong to this type of people. Qin Pingon asked with a smile, do you know anything about Buddhist scriptures? Chao Yin replied, I have seen some but not much. Qin Pingon asked a question, what do you think of the sudden difference between the north and the south of the Buddhist Zen sect? Chao Yin was a little worried. How could he dare to talk about such a major issue involving a major diversion of Buddhism, not to mention that the young man had never thought about it. Qin Pingon asked again, then let me ask you, can you really become a Buddha on the ground? How do you stay in the realm from which you came from an epiphany? Chao Yin seems to have realized something, but it seems that the words in his heart have become the enemy of telling his heart. Qin Pingon smiled and said, think slowly. Qin Pingon took a sip of tea. Just now, what question did you want to ask? Chao Yin regained his senses, summoned up his courage and said, what is the specific time schedule of Qin Shanju every day? Can you elaborate? I want to copy it and I can learn a little bit of the true meaning. Looking at other people's lives is like looking at a map. The marked mountains and rivers are famous, but they always seem to have nothing to do with oneself. But if there is a chance to get close to those famous mountains and rivers, it will be a different scenery. Just like when the weather is fine, standing in the distance and looking at a desolate mountain, you don't realize how high it is. The closer you get to this mountain, the more you look up, and when you reach the foot of the mountain you will find how towering it is. Just entering the mountain in the mountain of Luopa Mountain seems to be another scene. Zhou Xian was startled and coughed quickly, reminding the boy that this question was not appropriate. Qin Pingon shook his head and smiled. Of course you can say it, but you can't learn it. There are too many things to pay attention to in practicing one. It varies from person to person, from time to time, and from place to place. There are different Taoist traditions. The techniques of breathing are vastly different. Their own life objects are different. The time of day and night, yin and yang, changes. And Qi practitioners who practice fire and water methods will have completely different work and rest and dojo choices. Therefore, on the mountain, it is very difficult to find a master who can help guide you when you encounter a critical point or a crux. You can avoid many detours and suffer a lot of unnecessary suffering. It is recognized that Yi Xiu is tough. Do you think they are really willing? Although he frankly told the young man that he couldn't learn, he didn't need to learn, but Qin Pingon still thought about it seriously. As the opening remarks, Zhou Xian only felt that today's trip was worthwhile. When I was young, I left my hometown and I was in a hurry. At that time I kept walking and practicing boxing to hang my life. I punched while walking, trying to adjust my breathing every step. Whenever I stopped and rested, I would also the sword furnace standing pile for practicing Shan Shan Quan. Before lying down and going to sleep, go to practice the sleeping pile for a long time, and strive to get the upper body of the fist. The more the better. 10,000, tens of thousands, 100,000, 1,000,000. The upper body of boxing can be possessed by gods, and if you don't believe it at the time, you can believe it. Just like calligraphy, there are ghosts and gods under the wrist to help, and whimsical. Whenever I have free time, I will read some books and make excerpts. I firmly believe that a good memory is not as good as a bad writing. The second time I went to the Great Wall of Sword Qi and in the Summer Palace, I actually didn't have many opportunities to dive in and practice. It really fits the routine of a cultivator in the general sense. Maybe it was only not long ago that I was in a dojo in Xindu Mountain, Tongyi's Hao. That's why I say you can't learn my practice routine, but then again if you try to break down your practice to the smallest possible size such as breathing, walking and sleeping, I don't think there is any problem. So in the final analysis, it's still there are no fixed laws in all laws, but all laws are in one law. Zhou Xian smiled brightly. Understood. At certain stages of cultivation, Qi practitioners will have nothing to do. Teenagers now feel that they have a lot to do. Chao Yang is a woman after all, and she is as careful as hair, so she is a little puzzled. Isn't Qin Shanzhu a great sword immortal who has already proven the Tao? Why does he seem to have white hair? Zhu Lianan sat quietly on the side, looking at the young mountain master who talked to the young man. What kind of woman would not be moved by such a young master? Qin Pingon smiled and said, if you have similar questions in the future, ask more. Even if I don't come here, you can take the initiative to find me. Zhu Lian sighed softly. It turns out that Buddhism only teaches ordinary words. Qin Ping placed him on deaf ears, stood up and finally said 3 words to the boy. The master said 15th is determined to study. There is no shortage of happiness, good men rest. How can a teenager not drink? In the first sentence, Zhou Yin heard Shanzhu Chen's expectations for him, and in the second sentence he also exhorted himself not to be too obsessed with breaking the situation, which is also a very reasonable golden and jade speech. It was just this third sentence that made the young man a little confused, and he didn't know how to answer for a while. Walking out of the house together, Zhou Yin was full of longing and anticipation and asked boldly, Master Qin Shan, have you seen the most holy teacher? Qin Pingon smiled and said, I have seen it. Zhou Yin was speechless for a while, looking at the back of the sword Immortal in blue. The young man couldn't calm down for a long time. Zhu Lian moved a little later, patted the boy on the shoulder and said with a smile. A few years later, someone asked Chao Jianxian, have you seen Mr. Qin? Zhou Yin smiled suddenly, and the side was also smiling like a flower. Next time we have to drink. After Zhu Lian put his hands together, he was stooped and quickly chased after his son. Chao Yang whispered, Mr. Zhu must have had a lot of deeds before going up the mountain, right? Zhou Yin nodded vigorously, sure. Qin Pingon slowed down and waited for Zhu Lian to follow. Sir, there is something I don't know if I should say it or not. Inappropriate. I admired the son's teaching of boxing before and I have some ideas. Itchy hands. Come on, let's go. The young mountain owner of Luapa Mountain and the old cook of Luapa Mountain. Just on the mountain road, the speed of punching from both sides can be called world-shattering. In short, you jump and deliver your punches, I swing your head to avoid, you black tiger dig your heart, and I also return a monkey to pick peaches, tossing and turning tortoises. Climb up, show your master style. It's fortunate that the pair of young girls never witnessed this questioning boxing, otherwise we would not talk about the Grand Master's style, Qin Zhenxian and Mr. Zhu with kind eyebrows. The romantic children of Jianghu Lao, from youth to old age. In fact, the wine glass has never been empty, because after drinking the wine in the glass he will refill it with a story. End of this chapter. Sort of coming chapter 980. The Mirage City, the capital of the Daquan dynasty. In the early morning at the beginning of the rain, the willows are the scenery is in the new year and the green and yellow are only half even. The carriage slowly stopped on a street in the west of the capital, and a group of men and women got off the carriage one after another. Next to it was a lotus pond with quiet water. With a palm as white as jade, holding onto the cool blue stone railing, the rain passes through the jasper sky, and the water floats with reunion leaves. This woman is more moving than the beauty. She bent her fingers, wiped the palms of her hands, twisted her wrists at will and turned her head to look. They didn't disturb her enjoyment of the scenery, they just stood at the street and waited patiently. Among them was a man with an empty sleeve hanging straight down. Standing next to a woman with a saber who seemed to have a gentle temperament, she smiled knowingly. It was difficult for herself to give them a red line for the month-old. The men and women of the Yao family were not young anymore, and the only one who didn't have any whereabouts was this gentleman of the capital city. Just because he saved his life on the battlefield and ended up with a lame leg and missing an arm, has been suspected of breaking the jar over the years. Of course, the younger brother has a high vision. He naturally despised the powerful woman who was following his status and title. This group of people is Yao Jinji, the Empress of Daquan. The governor of the capital, Yao Xianji, and the female cultivator standing beside him, Lu Yi, nicknamed Yuanyang with the Taoist name Yifu. Lu Yi is now the third-class worshipper of the Daquan dynasty. Not long ago the court issued an order to transfer her to Mirage. The Immorse office of the Jingfu served as Yao Xianzi's personal squire. Of course, it was His Majesty's false public welfare, but Lu Yi did not refuse. The new national teacher Han Guanghu, a native of Jinjiazhu. The chief royal family worships Lu Zong from the blessed land of lotus blossoms. The young man is concise. The Taoist name is Yurange. He was born in Aquarius, and he has a magic sword famous spring under his arm. There is also a woman whose eyes can no longer hide the crow's feet. Yao Lingji, the younger sister of Empress Daquan and the elder sister of the governor of the capital city, has completely taken care of her since she lost the famous spring, and stopped talking Jianghu people deal with green forest hawkers. Yao Jinji was going to a small Taoist temple and met a former prince who should have called her sister-in-law, Lu Mao, who is now a Taoist from Longzhou above the Jinyu genealogy of the Ministry of Rites. The small Taoist temple is called Huanghuaguan, which is located in the westernmost part of Mirage City. Yao Jinji walked to the street, raised his hands and sighed. Yao Lingji lost a look at his younger brother, motioning him to stop being stupid, and hurriedly walked ahead to show His Majesty the way. The Daquan dynasty has always worshipped Taoism, and there are many Taoist temples in the capital. Huanghua Temple is a small Taoist temple with a long history. Not long after Daquan founded the country, Emperor Taizong used to build a Taoist temple to pray for blessings. Slightly larger carriages are difficult to pass through those winding narrow alleys. Yao Lingji walked with His Majesty the Emperor in the dimly lit alley and said softly, "Your Majesty, at the Silly Jian and the Ministry of Rites, someone informed Huang Huaguan that Lu Mao was ready to pick up the car today, but he was originally asked to stay there. It's an hour earlier, we're an hour earlier, I don't know where Lu Mao is." Yao Jinji smiled and said, "At the Huanghua Temple, there are only 3 people in total, including the master of the temple and the resident Taoist. How can Lu Mao pick him up? It's all arbitrary." In fact, Lu Mao, the spectator of the Taoist name Longzhou, waited at the door early in the morning, put on a clean Taoist robe, held a whisk, folded his hands on his abdomen, closed his eyes and rested. There are also 2 children, reluctant to accompany Master Guanzhu, got up early, rubbed his eyes, yawned, confused. Master didn't say who he was going to greet. It took half an hour to wait, really tiring. Not long ago, Lu Mao said that he was going to form an elixir, and he hoped that the imperial court could help arrange a dojo. On the gate of the Taoist temple are 2 painted portraits of majestic spirit officials standing tall. Under the recommendation of Mr. Zeng, the swordsman on credit Han Guanghu, who served as the national teacher of Daquan in the spring of this year, said with a smile, "Your Majesty, Lu Mao's cultivating qualifications are not bad, he is in his 40s. Opportunity dies. As long as he is not compared with those unreasonable young monks, if the 3rd prince of the former dynasty of Daquan can really achieve golden pills in the age of confusion, he can be called a genius. Now it depends on His Majesty's thoughts, whether he intends to let the Daoist Longzhou jump to the Dragon Gate, or whether he intends to make the 3rd prince Lu Mao stay in the Dragon Gate realm for the rest of his life. Maybe this answer will need to wait until His Majesty meets the little brother-in-law of the past, or it may be that His Majesty has already made a conclusion in his heart. Today's residence in Huanghuaguan is just a passing scene. It is said that on the Huanghuaguan side, Lu Mao will send the green words and green seals, handwritten letters of 3 officials and festival talismans written by himself every year, and he will take the initiative to invite people to send them into the palace. The meaning is very simple, that is, Lu Mao took this opportunity to help His Majesty the Emperor prove that Lu Mao, the son of the late Emperor Lu of Daquan, is still alive and well. Xianxia did his best. Before she knew it, as she walked, Yao Lingji and the Korean teacher changed positions. She walked with her master Lu Zong and the young Jianming at the end of the alley. Yao Xinyi, who was walking in front, limped, slowed his pace, turned his head and smiled. "National teacher, this Lu Mao is not a fuel-efficient lamp. Since he was a child he was very shrewd, good at calculating and winning people's hearts. If he hadn't run away when I become a Taoist priest, it's not my turn to be the governor of the capital. Lu Mao should also take care of the affairs of the rivers and lakes on my sister's side. The talent of this fellow is really good." In the 12th year of Shen, the book includes the topographical record, a tome of more than 400 volumes. In fact, the chief executive who is really in charge of the outline and leadership is Lu Mao. I've been staring at him for the past few years and am quite honest, and Lu Mao is also a master of arithmetic. There are many arithmetic books on the bookshelf. I had some ideas at first, but now I'm not pretending. I really plan to practice the Tao with peace of mind. Last time I came here I said some heart-to-heart words with me. Of course the words were a bit ugly. Anyway, Lu Mao was a child. He likes to talk to those who he despises from the bottom of his heart, and deliberately speak yin and yang strangely. Yao Lingji glanced carefully at His Majesty's face, but couldn't see anything, so he quickened his pace, stretched out his hand and twisted the rib of this younger brother, reminding him not to talk about Lu Mao. Yao Xianji hesitated for a while but still didn't say what was in his heart. Mr. Chen said that Lu Mao is really disheartened. As long as it works properly, maybe in the next 100 years of the Daquan dynasty, there will be one more the Yuan Ying worship that helps to extend the country's fortune. It is precisely because Mr. Chen has this judgment that Yao Xinji dares to say so today. Otherwise, after being the governor of the government for so long, does he really think that he is a wine bag and rice bag? Yao Jinji smiled, non-committal. Yao Xinji said softly, "It's here." Turning to the corner of an alley on the side of Huanghuaguan, Lu Mao calmed his mind, held a whisk in his hand and walked to the center of the alley. When His Majesty the Emperor approached, Lu Mao made a bow. Huanghuaguan Abbot Taoist priest Lu Mao, pay tribute to His Majesty the Emperor. After Lu Mao got up he bowed his head again. Lu Mao has seen the national teacher Lord Fu Yin. Yao Jinji smiled and said, "No need to be more polite. Lu Mao, it seems that we haven't seen each other for many years." Compared with the ambitious and rude eldest prince, Yao Jinji actually didn't have much personal grudge against Lu Mao. The two little Daoists in the Taoist temple were dumbfounded on the spot, and their minds were full of confusion. Fortunately, it seems that the emperor is not angry, but Yao Xinji stretched out his hand to hold the head of a little Taoist boy and joked, "Why is it not skinny? What about the usual force?" Lu Mao's expression became more and more respectful. He no longer bowed his head with the Taoist door and bowed his head with the courtier's bow. He said softly, "Report to Your Majesty, it's been more than 10 years since the last time. It's as fast as a flick of a finger." Umbrella Han Guang, who looked at this spectator, Lu Mao, as a remnant of the previous dynasty, can live under His Majesty's eyes to this day. It is not without reason. Entering the Taoist temple, Yao Lingji temporarily proposed to go to the main hall of the Taoist temple to worship. As far as everyone could see, there was only one hall and one bedroom. Because it was built by the royal family, the Taoist temple was small but not low in size. The hall was deep and solemn. The light is slightly dim, and the warm pavilion is only 3 feet away from the hall. The two are covered by a yellow dragon curtain. There is a luxurious lichen and 2 antique chairs are placed. The mattress is made of yellow brocade, and the front dragon is woven with peacock feathers. It's just that the sacrifices on the altar are simple. There are only 3 pieces of meat in the gui and only a few grains of millet. Lu Mao immediately fetched an incense stick, and when His Majesty the Emperor took out 3 sticks of incense, everyone walked lightly and exited the hall. His Majesty the Emperor paid his respects to the incense, and did not leave the hall immediately, but pushed aside the yellow curtain and went to the Nuan pavilion to watch it for a while. In fact, Lu Mao's lineage was not the descendant of Emperor Gaozu, but the descendant of Emperor Taizong, on the side of the royal family tree of Liu's family in Daquan of the previous dynasty. Therefore, Yao Jinji intends to place Lu Mao in this Taoist temple built by Emperor Taizong, and it cannot be said that she has no intention. Yao Jinji stepped over the threshold and did not go to the more spacious living room. Instead, he said to sit in Lu Mao's study. It was a small room with many people, especially the study had only 2 chairs, and it looked like a brand new woodworker. Lu Mao remained expressionless. "Before cultivating Taoism you were His Royal Highness." The hall was full of splendor, with staggered chalices, and the imperial red candle was as thick as an arm, and the night was as white as day, and the host did not think it was lively enough. After cultivating the Tao, the two of them coexist and feel noisy. Han Guanghu's eyes were sharp, and he caught a glimpse of a small framed small letter on the wall of the study, which was copied from the Taoist classic Huang Ting Jing. In one go, completely natural. But if you look closely, there are 2 kinds of handwriting, and the last 16 characters are: separate the body, change the form arbitrarily, complement the real person, and the heaven and the earth are born together. After the old man put his hands together, he looked at it carefully for a while and commented in a low voice, "The latecomers come first." Yao Xinji was so happy that he moved a chair and planned to invite His Majesty to take a seat, but Yao Jinji let him sit down and the governor was not polite. After sitting down he lightly clenched his fists and beat his legs. Just rebelled. After these years of recuperation, in fact, he has improved a lot. When he was the uncle of the country a few years ago, it was called suffering. When Mr. Qin gave him 2 ascension pills carefully refined from Qinghu Palace in Qingjing Mountain, after Yao Xinji took one, the effect was excellent and it was immediate. Mr. Qin also joked at the time that the young man has strong firepower and can make pancakes in his ass. His Majesty's eyes wandered freely, and the 2 chicken-spaced pens in the pen holder must be special brushes used by Lu Mao to copy scriptures. In fact, Yao Jinji knew exactly where each pen, every book, and even where they were placed in this Huanghuaguan, especially in this study. For example, the 2 chicken distance pens inscribed with quiet, bright and clean in the pen holder. In fact, these are the same as the heavenly phenomena and star map, which belonged to the forbidden book of the imperial court, when they scoffed the house before. His Majesty deliberately left them to Lu Mao's. She kindly advised the young viewer of the yellow flower view that in a quiet place, he must have a bright and pure heart that matches it. In addition to cultivating Taoism, when you have nothing to do, you can also flip through books such as the Astronomical Column and Star Chart. Since you are a cultivator, look up at the sky more and don't focus on the things on the earth. As for whether Lu Mao could understand it or not, Yao Jinji didn't care at all. Anyway, Daoist Longzhou of Huanghuaguan, if something went wrong, it would be what the end should be. Could it be that she, the emperor who had let go of his life, be so generous and kind to him again and again? Yao Jinji moved to the bookshelf, pulled out the forbidden book and squinted her eyes instantly. She quickly flipped through the pages. In the crowded but silent room, only the pages were rattling. The title page and the last page of the book are stamped with 2 side-by-side seals, Thinking Unlimited and Thinking Backwards. Satisfied and insufficient. Yao Jinji casually put the book back in its place, turned around, reached out to the spectator in Taoist robe, pressed it twice, his eyes were gentle, and motioned Lu Mao to sit on the last chair. Lu Mao hesitated for a moment, seeing that Yao Jinji's expression was still the same. Lu Mao had to sit down and take care of his body and qi. The soft and weak woman in front of him was indeed very majestic. The young man put his arms around his chest and leaned against the door. It was very strange. He originally wanted to return the treasure of the state under his arm to the Yao family in Daquan, but the emperor, His Majesty, did not take it back. I gave it to myself. In exchange, I will serve as a 3rd-class consecration in the records of the court's punishment department, and I will specifically participate in the search of the mountains in several small vassal states. You can give up your worship status anywhere and leave the Daquan dynasty. Yao Jinji walked to the desk, stretched out his 2 fingers, tapped the pen holder lightly and said with a smile, Lu Guanzhu, do you know that our Daquan manufacturing office has newly set up the office of the office, and some of them are specially made by craftsmen. This chicken distance pen is located at the Lotus Bridge not far from Huanghuaguan, next to Baoquan Bureau and Songchang Yamen in the Ministry of Housing. After I read several submitted official styles, I was not satisfied and I always felt that it was a little bit interesting. The chicken pitch pen of the Daquan dynasty is the most suitable for writing small case, and it is famous all over the continent. The dignitaries and literati of various countries used to like to buy some chicken pitch pens and match them with the Luomei paper produced in the blessed land of Yunku, as poetry and poetry in correspondence. In this transaction, the Ministry of Industry of Daquan joined forces with the Qingping sword sect, but they used a suggestion from the other party to change the official system to the imperial system. 1 word difference and the price quadrupled. As one of the allies in the excavation of Dadu, Yuguazong in the south promised to make a reservation with the Daquan dynasty for 30,000 chickens, including the entire Yunku blessed land and several Xinjia ferry crossings including Baichengdu. Pen. Lu Mao said cautiously, dare to ask your majesty what is the price of this chicken pitch pen? Yao Jinji said with a smile, 1 imperial chicken pen, 1 snow spends money. Yuguazong Xinjuan Peak has already ordered 30,000 pens with us, and the amount of the deposit alone is not small. That's why I'm so embarrassed. I can't let the office secretary of the office make some shoddy chicken distance pens and use them to fool Yuguazong. This matter can be big or small. Xinjuanfeng really wants to investigate. It's not a matter of refunding money. Lu Mao was speechless for a while. Was he robbing money? In the past there were many kinds of chicken pitch pens in Daquan. If Lu Mao remembered correctly, aside from those privately made and luxurious chicken pitch pens, we only mentioned the ones sold in batches on the market. Among them the craftsmanship was the best and the price was the highest. But a dozen taels of silver. Imperial. Looking at the territory of a continent, which inner court office of the imperial court can make 30,000 brushes in one go? Yao Jinji saw the Daoist Longzhou, who was hesitant to say anything. She seemed to be in a good mood. She took out a chicken-spaced pen from the pen holder, flipped it a few times between her fingers and glanced at the inscription. It was Mingjing. Slightly raised his gaze, he glanced at Lu Mao, who was always sitting upright beside him, and she casually threw the chicken distance pen back into the pen holder, saying, "After you leave the customs, if you can successfully form a pill, don't practice too cleanly. You might as well stabilize your realm and train your mind in the red dust. According to what you said on the mountain, getting involved in the red dust is also a practice. For example, the imperial court is about to issue new money. Since the Huanghuaguan is so close to the Baoquan Bureau and the Wunfang Division, you should go for more walks, and when you look back I will give you a suitable official status from the Ministry of Punishment. Don't worry, it must be a noble and idle job." Lu Mao hurriedly got up and thanked His Majesty the Emperor. "We are ministers for the order, thank His Majesty for your grace." Yao Jinji said with a smile. "Then here I wish Lu Guanzi's success in forming a pill. Regarding the dojo, the candidate for guardianship, Yao Fuyin will help you finalize the result within 3 days at the latest." Lu Mao turned slightly to the side again and thanked Lord Fuyin. "Yao Xian's anger is not in the same place. We get along in private. Why haven't I seen you so polite?" Yao Jinji was the first to walk out of the house. Yao Lingji left a gift on the table. After Lu Mao sent the group out of the Taoist temple gate, he gently tugged Yao Xianzi's sleeve. Yao Xinji stopped, lowered his voice and asked suspiciously, "Is something wrong?" Lu Mao asked softly, "Master Fuyin, the forbidden books are kept privately in the Taoist temple, which is inconsistent with the court etiquette. Can you please ask Your Majesty to order someone to bring back this heavenly phenomena and star map, and turn it over to the library?" Yao Xinji laughed and scolded but still agreed, turned around and followed the group. Back on the same road and walking in the alley, Han Guanghu frowned and said, "Your Majesty, what exactly is Han Jiangshu on Wan Yezong's side? She just dragged along like this without giving an exact explanation." "The deposit has been given, and so far there has not been a cultivator connected with the imperial court, so she is so sure that we can't find another buyer for her blessed land of 3 mountains?" Yao Jinji frowned slightly. "It's really weird. Han Jiangshu had approached her before, and Wan Yaozong was going to order a cross-continental ferry with the Daquan dynasty. The two sides had a pleasant conversation. The family owned a female fairy of the upper 5 realms of blessed land. From beginning to end there was no arrogance at all. On the contrary, it is easy to talk like a person who has something to ask for." Han Guanghu sneered, "Your Majesty, if according to my opinion if Han Jiangshu does not reply in another month, Wan Yaozong will not want to go back for this deposit, no matter who the other party is looking for. Come to the door and I will be responsible for reasoning for His Majesty, not to mention it is a jade. Even her father Han Yushu, who is the suzerain, comes to the door in person, and it is impossible to seek good things on my side." Lu Zong sighed, "People are more popular than dead people. This is the confidence of a martial artist. Otherwise, even His Majesty the Emperor would not dare to urge Wan Yaozong too much. But just ask the Ministry of Rites to send a letter to the Blessed Land contact person designated by Han Jiangshu. Wan Yaozong is originally the Immortal mansion with the prefix of Zong. According to the calculations of the Daquan dynasty, Wan Yaozong will probably not block the Confucian temple by virtue of the military exploits that the money smashed, so it will definitely have it within a few years. A descendant. It's just that for some reason Han Jiangshu, as the speaker of Wan Yao sect after Tang Yezhou appeared, he seemed to have a glimpse and then he was silent. The cross-continental ferry Thunder Car booked with the Daquan court has been running aground." Yao Jinji smiled and said, "That's it. This Wan Yaozong, no matter how big the sect's power is, it can't be bigger than a word." In the past, the Daquan dynasty was half buyed and half built, and owned the first cross-continental ferry Luxiangzi, and the most expensive cross-continental ferry was the blueprint that was listed as the top secret by major sections. If you just buy one, the cost of the ferry itself is actually not too high to be staggering. The reason why the sect in Aizhou is willing to sell blueprints and a boat embryo as a result the Daquan dynasty will sign a contract with them, and will not leak the drawings to the outside world. Moreover, the follow-up maintenance of some key parts of the ferry, with the current strength of the Daquan Court's Ministry of Industry, even if it has the drawings, it is still unable to repair it, which requires future repairs. Continue to maintain long-term cooperation with the seller, and the other party also hopes that by selling the ferry, it is equivalent to helping him own the largest ferry in Tongyi's Hao. In the end, every new ferry built by the Daquan Court according to the blueprint, that zone doors are divided. Daquan Yao's plan is that in the next 10 to 20 years, and then build 2 cross-continental ferries, named Emayu and Leiche respectively. Daquan will keep one for himself and sell one to fill the treasury hole for purchasing blueprints and building 3 cross-continental ferries. This Thunder Car. There are currently 2 immortal mansions that have intentions in addition to Wan Yaozong in addition to the Jindingguan in the north, Baozhen Taoist Miaofeng Xiao Yuanran. These Taoist masters and apprentices were once the first class of the Daquan dynasty. For worship, Lu Ying, the chief worshipper of Jindingguan, had contacted Daquan, but the price of Jindingguan was 30% lower than that of Wan Yaozong. Yao Xinji tapped Lu Zong with his shoulder and winked at the old man. Lu Zong laughed and pretended to be stupid on purpose. Seeing that Yao Xinji was still there, Lu Zong turned his head to look at the female cultivator who was walking side by side with his apprentice behind him. Jiang was still old and hot, and Lord Fu Yin was defeated immediately. Because according to Lu Zong's proposal, Daquan kept 2 cross-continental ferries, deer titled Jiamei Moon. The former took the north-south route, passing through 3 continents from south to north, Tongyi's Hao, Beipingzhu and Beiju Luzhou. After the completion of the second Emayu, it joined hands with the Aizhou Lu to mine the extreme north ice field, passing through Nampo Suzhou, Middle-earth Shenzhou and Aizhou, and more than a dozen sects, immortals and palaces including Longxiangjianzing, the Yamashita dynasty, and a total of 16 large-scale Xinjia ferries formed an alliance and signed detailed terms for ferry docking. Regarding this matter, the discussion in the imperial study of His Majesty the Emperor has passed. It's just that the discerning people who are qualified to participate in the discussion are well aware that the person who can come up with such a plan is definitely not the chief worship of Lu Zong. And after Han Guang, who served as the national teacher, the plan was changed again mainly because the route was changed. You could take the trade route of Luhua Island, Yulongzong, Fuyazhu and Jinjiazhu. After all, Han Guanghu is very prestigious on the Jinjiazhu side, and there are extremely impressive deep connections and incense love on the mountain and down the mountain. Han Guanghu did not think that the route plan proposed by Lu Zong was very clever. There was only one point, but he was full of praise, saying that Lu Zong had a long-term vision and was extremely insightful. Because according to Lu Zong's suggestion, all the Zongmen Xianfu and the major ferry crossings of the dynasty that the ferry passes through, the Daquan court must bite to death, determine the price early and sign extremely long terms with each family. Now the world is vast. Most of the cross-continental ferries have been requisitioned by the Confucian Temple. In order to maintain the operation of each ferry and ensure profitability, it is very necessary for cross-continental ferry boats such as deer titles to Amei Moon, which are not dispatched by the Confucian Temple, to dock for business and trade to drive popularity and stabilize financial resources. Therefore, during this time period, the Daquan dynasty signed a clause with the ferry, and could use a price far lower than previous years. Therefore, the longer the age is now, the more money the Daquan dynasty will pay to the ferry each year in the future. In this link, the more money is saved. To save money is to make money. Everyone understands this superficial truth. Yao Jinji weighed the pros and cons, and it was really hard to decide for a while. After thinking about it, why not build a transcontinental ferry? He even picked her name, Huazilan. Yao Lingji has long been a wife, and the woman who yearns most in the rivers and lakes, but married a scholar from a scholarly family. Now that she has 2 children, she is the first to get married among the Ji generation. Previously, Qin Pingon asked Yao Xinji to hand over and gave her children 2 red envelopes. Not long ago, during the New Year's greetings in the first lunar month, the younger brother completely stunned the 2 children at once. In the past, the 2 children always doubted many of their uncle Yao Xianzi's claims. Uncle, are you really familiar with Qinyingguan? Brag about not writing drafts. It's actually just the kind of nodding acquaintances who have chatted for a few days, right? But since they received a red envelope from Yao Xinji, the 2 children saw Yao Xinji again, and the respectful count was a mess, especially when they learned that their uncle had even become a guest of honor in Qingping Sword Sect Patriarch Hall. Both children's eyes lit up. The more and more I admire my uncle and I flatter me when I meet him. Uncle, do you want to rub my shoulders and knock my legs? Uncle, I haven't seen you for a few days. You look younger and more handsome. Uncle, let me help you be a lobbyist with Sister Yuanyang. If you don't object, I'll call my aunt directly. After all, for children, among the many immortals on the mountain, the sword immortals are the most fascinating and there is no one. And that young hidden officer from the Great Wall of Sword Qi is also the sword immortal among the sword immortals. In fact, His Majesty the Emperor Yao Jinji and even Grandpa are all happy to see this happen, but Lord Fu Yin has not been enlightened, so it was delayed. Lu Yi, whose boudoir name is Yuanyang, Taoist name Yifu, is a native of Daquan, and his family is a local county governor. The appearance is young, which means that her cultivating aptitude is excellent. Before Lu Yi was in the two battlefields of Jiangyi and Mirage City, he gave up his life and forgot his death. He was very courageous but very strategic. The female cultivator cultivated at the Dragon Gate realm, and the accumulated military exploits were not lost to several golden pills. But in the end, Lu Yi only asked the Daquan court for a third-class offering. In fact, according to the merits of the war, the second-class offering was more than enough. Some things women do not object. This is the most obvious statement. How can she be bold? Yao Lingji looked at Lu Yi next to him and smiled again. Lu Yi just pretended not to know but quietly reddened his ears. Yao Lingji felt that it was not worth it for her, so he stepped forward quickly and kicked Yao Xinji in front of him, kicking the latter to a stagger and quickly reached out to support the wall. Yao Xinji turned his head and asked, "What's wrong?" Yao Lingji said angrily, "Is it okay with you?" Yao Xinji said with a smile, "Sister, you kicked a lame man for no reason. Is it reasonable? I have to tell my nephew and niece later and see who they will help then." Yao Lingji pouted, "Cripple? A fool is right. No wonder I heard that Grandpa had a conversation with Mr. Chen on the ferry. One said that Yao Xinji was not worthy of a certain girl, and the other agreed that he felt the same way." Yao Jinji ignored the slapstick behind him and continued to discuss business affairs with the old national teacher. The secretary of the study office can't just rely on the sale of a chicken span pen. In the Daquan dynasty, there are also some old inkstone pits that have been banned for many years. In one step, the new pit stone is not necessarily as good as the old pit. It is said that there is a Tao river on the southern border. When I was a child, I often went to the inkstone pit with Lingji and Xinji to play. The mining was very early and produced a kind of moisturizing. If jasper is the stone for making inkstones, in fact I think it is as good as other famous inkstones. It has a history of more than 1,200 years, but it has been abandoned for many years. Yao Xinji nodded and said, "It's just that those major mines are all located at the bottom of the Tao River. If a certain number of Qi trainers are not used, it will be too difficult for ordinary masons to mine. The biggest problem is that there are no special books to describe them. In our Daquan, Taoha inkstones are still hidden, let alone sold to other countries. Otherwise, the Maiziking that we used to visit when we were young, as well as the green in front of the temple and the red in the back of the temple, the texture of the stone is sincere. It's not bad, but it's a pity that everyone on the mountain and down the mountain likes to be thick and thin. Otherwise, if the price is right, the quantity will be large and the court only needs to continue mining in the old pit, which will be a big profit." Lu Zong Yenshu said with a smile, "I heard that hundreds of years ago, there was a book, Dong Tian Qinglu Collection, dedicated to advocating the famous inkstones of old pits in Tongyi's Hao, which listed more than 10 kinds of precious inkstones. How about our imperial court? Here the official government re-engraved a version, and in the Hanlin Academy I found a few pens with better literary skills, and secretly added a piece of Taoha green inkstone to it, and I wrote and rewritten how good the Taoha inkstone is and how to mine it. Difficult, add a few more quirks and fairy tales. Rich scholars like to focus on the past and the present. Isn't this very ancient?" Yao Jinji turned his head to look at the chief worshipper. Yao Lingji was even more astonished. "Master, the old man has entered the far-flung realm, and has his business experience together?" Yao Xinji held back his laughter, secretly amused, and extended his thumb to Lu old man. Yes, amazing." Han Guanghu thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "It's a lucrative business that can be done, operated properly and made a name for itself. In addition to this continent, Daquan's specialty products, including cross-continental ferry boats and Gigi pens, are sold to other continents together. It's quite a fortune indeed. The old national teacher once again looked at the worship of Lu Zong with admiration. He was really not the master of eating dry rice. Lu Zong twitched his beard and smiled, thinking back then when he was young the nickname Little Zhou Xian on the rivers and lakes didn't come for nothing. On the other side of Huanghuaguan, two little road boys squatted under the eaves, chattering and jumping for joy. Your Majesty the Emperor is so beautiful. In the study, Lu Mao opened the small brocade box on the table. Inside there was a piece of circular ink made by the imperial court, garnished with gold, and the front was written in official script Junzi Zayuziji. The forehead was inscribed 9 Shou Yoshu, and the Yin consciousness was filled in blue. On the ink back is a 5-element map of gold, wood, water, fire and soil. Lu Mao let out a long sigh and had to admit that he was able to tide over the difficulties this time, thanks to the man surnamed Chen. Approaching the carriage, His Majesty the Emperor made a detour and walked back to the railing of the lotus pond where she had stopped before. She was silent for a moment and asked the old national teacher beside her, I heard that the latest debate on the 3 religions is about to start? Han Guanghu nodded. Because of that war it was delayed for years. Yao Jinji hesitated for a moment and asked, as a national teacher, can I sit in on the debate? Han Guanghu laughed dumbly, shook his head and said, I'm just a martial artist but I don't have the qualifications. Back then even if I had the status of a national teacher on Jinjiazu, I couldn't participate in such a big event. Yao Jinji nodded, seeming a little regretful. When Jinjiazu was mentioned the old man inevitably felt a little homesick. They all have people in mind far away from each other. Yao Jinzi's eyes were blurred and his expression was in a trance. People are far away but also in their hearts. Sword of Coming Chapter 981. Yu Dynasty. The era named Shenlong. After parting with that Cui Dongshan, Wang Zhu only took Gong Yan and Wang Qiongju by his side, and the other 3 servants of the Waterhouse, Huang Man, a jade Taoist who is a ghost fairy, Li Ba whose Taoist name is Quenzheng, and Shimon who was born in a land dragon. Since the 3 have been recruited by Qingping Jianzong, they need to inspect the future trend of Dadu and the mountains and rivers along the way. Traveling all the way through the mountains and waters, the trip was uncertain. Just looking at the mood of the East Sea monarch, the 2 sides parted ways and made an appointment to meet at the Jitsue Temple in Luojing. Between the palace city and the imperial city of Luojing, there is a white rice alley, and the Jitsue Temple of the abbot Lu Bilong, the real protector of the country, is located here. The Taoist temple buildings are all made of green glazed tiles made by royal official kilns. Inside the temple are lush pines and cypresses. However, Huang Man and the others arrived in Luojing earlier than the 3 people who were light and unhurried. They were waiting at a tea stall outside the capital of a post station. As expected, at noon today when the sun was shining brightly, there appeared on the official road. I got a simple carriage and the driver was the young man Wang Qiongju with a red leather gourd on his back. When he looked at his clothes, outsiders would know that he was a practitioner. Ordinary masters would not be stupid when they traveled abroad, right? Gourd. Wang Zhu, who was dressed in a snow-white robe, got off the carriage and Gong Yan, who was dressed in brocade, followed closely, stopped the horse to drink tea and sat at a table. Only the young man was not qualified to drink tea at the table, so he could only hold a tea bowl and squat on the side of the road. Gong Yan couldn't help but said, Shui Jun, do we really want to have something to do with this Yu dynasty? She has a really bad impression of the Yu dynasty. Along the way she has seen many officials who are reticent, like to talk clearly and are very happy to work. Many local policies are flashy and pretentious. A decree from the 6 government offices in Luojing, issued layer by layer, may end up with only a third of the benefits for the common people, and a local official with a brilliant pen and a flower can blow out the effect of 11 points. The newly released top 10 dynasties of Tongji's Hao, the Daquan dynasty topped the list, the Dachong dynasty was the 3rd and the Yi dynasty was the 5th, but it is such a dynasty whose reputation has long been ruined. To protect 5 and 3. Li Ba said, the water in the big spring is very deep and difficult to control. Assuming that the Yao clan's national strength in Daquan is 10 and the Yu clan is 5, then the big spring can be used by my waterhouse at most 2 or 3, but the Yu clan's dynasty is 5, as many as you want. How much you are willing to give. In this comparison, Shuifu is naturally more cost-effective to support the Yu dynasty. The only problem is that this Yu dynasty is not stingy and can't help it, but it will cause our Shuifu to cause a lot of trouble. Huang Man smiled and said, In short, Yao Jinji doesn't obey. This girl is too hard-boned. It's normal. If it weren't for this temper, how to keep Daquan Guizhua? I remember that the wild demon clan opened Mirage City at that time. The conditions for the delivery are still very good, and it is the only one. On the other hand, the emperor of the Yu clan lying on the sickbed is very obedient, and he is more out of breath than air. He is still thinking about how to please us, but he does not know the crown prince Yulin who inherited the great lineage. You, what is your attitude this trip to Luojing? Li Ba, you are also a former national teacher, so you have to help me. Gong Yan glared and said, speak politely to me, don't be a bitch. Huang Man laughed dumbly. Awu, now turn your elbows out. Are you the same enemy as Yao Jinji? Wang Zhu sneered and said, support? The Yu dynasty and my water house just pay tribute on time every year. Gong Yan glanced at the outer city wall of Luojing. The city's defense formation of the Yu dynasty's capital was useless. The Daoist protection of the protector of the country? Wang Qiongju immediately took out a purse full of broken silver and copper coins and ran to check out. Then the group used the method of shrinking the earth and went straight to the street outside a Daoist temple. Unlike the previous traffic jams, the entire wide white rice alley is now heavily guarded, and there are guards at both ends of the alley. During the retreat, the entire Luojingjing was talking a lot, especially the dignitaries who were relatively familiar with the affairs of the mountain, and they were looking forward to it. Could it be that our Yu dynasty will have a Jade Pure Realm Immortal? A beautiful woman in her 30s wearing a jasper crown, stepping on a pair of green lotus and white lotus shoes, and holding a snow-white whisk. She retracted her gaze from the post station outside the capital, and slowly walked down to the platform, which was the tallest building in the Taoist temple, and laid out a picture of Tai Chi with two kinds of beautiful jade. It is the contemporary master of Jiquiguan, the real protector of the country in the Yu dynasty, the national teacher LV Bilong, whose Taoist name is Full Moon. Lu Bailong's figure disappeared in a flash, and she came to the door of the Taoist temple in an instant. She ordered the concierge Taoist priest to immediately open the middle door of the Taoist temple. Dui watched Lu Bilong and met Dong Heijin. Lu Bilong walked down the steps, wearing a phoenix marsh robe, even when he saw a Dong Hai Si monarch with the highest rank in the Howren world, a woman who was not at the nascent soul realm. Guan, still with a calm expression, waved the dust and said with a smile in his heart, I have received a secret letter from the master before, and I learned that you are coming to our temple and you have been waiting for a long time, so I asked your majesty to mobilize the imperial guards in front of the palace to put the white rice. There is martial law near the alley so as not to make too much noise near the Taoist temple. Huang Man has the highest cultivation base in Huzhong, and always feels that the female national teacher in front of him is a bit weird, but it's just that it's weird and I can't tell. It's like it's missing a bit of humanity. Wang Zhu narrowed his eyes. Turned out to be a porcelain. Wang Zhu stepped up the steps and said, let Yu Lingyu and Huang Shanshou come here to meet me immediately. Lu Bilong turned sideways and waited until Wang Zhu took the lead in stepping up the 3 steps, then followed, nodded and smiled. Shui Jun, wait a moment, I'll call someone over. I saw the female crown took out an origami-made green kite from her sleeve, held the paper kite with her fingers together, put it to her mouth and whispered a sentence. The East Sea Lord came to Jiquiguan, and invited His Royal Highness and the General. Huang Shanshou came here to meet together. Afterwards, Lu Bilong threw the blue paper kite into the air lightly. The female crown led the group of foreign guests to an elegant room, took out a set of imperial tea sets, and Lu Bilong sat down on her knees and began to make tea. Wang Zhu sat cross-legged with one hand on his knee and his cheek supported, and he didn't bother to care about the female crown of the dove occupying the magpie's nest opposite, but turned his head to look out at the courtyard outside. Gong Yan said with a heartfelt smile, I heard that Huang Shanshou is a far-flung martial artist, only about 40 years old, and he has no expert guidance. In just 10 years it has broken through the 3 realms. Li Ba said, a rare temple talent, the Yu dynasty relies on him to support it. Confucianism is full of benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom and trust, and this popularity is very big. Huang Shanshou was born in poverty and did not read much, so he joined the army when he was young. Back then, when one continent was in Lushan, Huang Shanshou did not flee to the secret realm of the Qingzhuan school with the old emperor of the Yu clan, but was surrounded by the army of Demon clan. An elite light cavalry fighting to support war, to a large extent involved the energy of a barbaric military tent. Once specially dispatched a Jade Pure Realm demon clan to kill this person, throwing bait and setting traps several times. Xianxia seems to have an unpredictable battlefield intuition and never bites the bait until the end of the war between the two worlds. The elite cavalry of Xianxia has never stopped harassing the demon clan's garrison troops in various places of the Yu dynasty. Therefore, when you, the new deputy head of the Tianmu Academy, a Confucian upright gentleman with outstanding military exploits, once publicly commented that the military general Xianxia, this person is the jade in the pit of the Yu dynasty. When you made no secret of his praise for Xianxia and his disgust for the Yu dynasty. Huang Man stretched out 2 fingers, gently twisted a strand of hair on his temples and said with a smile, "This is the year of no confusion, and it has reached the point where there is no seal. This is not what the master of high power is." Gong Yan sneered and said, "If it weren't for when yes words, and with the suspicious character of the old emperor of the Yu family, it is estimated that he would be able to retire within a few years of being a general." As a result, Xianxia did not come. There was only one prince of the Yu dynasty, His Royal Highness. Sitting next to LV Bilong, Yu Linyu was apologetic, explaining that General Huang, in addition to being the abbot of a country's military affairs and holding the rank of Minister of Punishment, happened to have an emergency meeting involving all the important officials of the 2 government offices. Really can't get out of it. Lu Bilong smiled but turned around and handed His Royal Highness a cup of hot tea. It was difficult for Yu Linyu to help Xianxia find such a reasonable excuse. Wang Zhu still didn't turn his eyes away, staring at a dwarf tree in the courtyard, and said casually, "Since Xianxia's shelf is so big, then please trouble your Yu dynasty to give more honorary titles such as Prince Taibao and so on. Let Xianxia retire and return to his hometown. Anyway, the battle is over and there is still a big general to do. It is better to return to the hometown, take a good rest and study martial arts with heart. Maybe after 20 years I can help you. The clan dynasty has an extra master who suppressed the martial arts movement." Yu Linya's face turned pale, his 5 fingers clenched the teacup tightly and he was speechless. Wang Zhu straightened up and turned his head to look at His Royal Highness. "Can't understand people's words?" Yu Linyu said in a trembling voice, "General Huang is the mainstay of our Yu dynasty's country." Wang Zhu waved his hand, "Then I'll make it clearer. Let you choose between the throne and Huangshan's birthday. Anyway, when the old emperor dies, you can only have one appearance in the courtroom, or Yu Linyu, sitting on the dragon chair, or Xianxia will continue to stand at the head of the civil and military officials. This time I originally called you to come together, but it was just such a trivial matter. If you didn't come and Xianxia came, I would ask him if he is interested, change his surname, or he will resign and go into hiding." Yu Linya's mind was fluctuating, apparently caught in a battle between heaven and man. Wang Zhu sneered, "Don't all say that the dragon's son and grandson born in the emperor's family, but anyone who has the opportunity to sit on the dragon chair, let alone a man, even a woman, has a bit of an emperor's temperament? It's that simple. Do you still need to hesitate?" Huang Man laughed heartily and said, "I thought Yu Linyu would be furious and refuse to do this with justice and righteousness. I would rather give up the throne and keep Xianxia's official status." Li Ba said indifferently, "Just wait and see. Yu Linyu will immediately secretly send a letter to Dafu Academy when he leaves Jiquiguan to complain to the Confucian temple." Gong Yanran smiled and said, "I'm really not afraid of tearing my face with our Shuifu. If His Royal Highness is really involved in such a risky act, is it considered wealth and wealth at risk?" Lu Bilong got up to say goodbye and Yu Linyu left Jiquiguan in despair with a heavy heart, sitting in the carriage without saying a word. Gong Yan asked with a smile, "This is?" Wang Zhu said casually, "Boring, just kidding. Not like a joke." Huang Man leaned back to the ground, his hands used as a pillow and his legs swayed. "My Lord Shuijun, why bother? How wide the Confucian Academy is now, especially the Vice-Chancellor one of Tianmu Academy, he is a famous thorn. Don't provoke this one if you provoke anyone." Wang Zhu said indifferently, "I am a passing guest of the Yu dynasty, and I was fortunate to meet His Royal Highness the Crown Prince at Jiquiguan. We talked very happily, drank a cup of tea and made a personal suggestion. Yu Linyu will not accept it. I can't tell how the Yu dynasty will be from now on. We will go our separate ways." Huang Man is also unwilling to discuss this issue with Wang Zhu. It's just that the high-ranking Master Shuijun has always done things like this, and if he thinks about it he will come out. These ministers who support the dragon just get used to it. Teach her to be a man? Don't forget Wang Zhu is a genuine Ascension Realm cultivator, and the only real dragon in the world. Only said that the Taoist name is Qingzhong, the owner of Lushwiking Mrs. Tundun, who is in charge of the land and water transportation of a world. After this suddenly dignified Ascension Realm demon, after being proclaimed by the Confucian Temple Yasheng personally, the Taoist name Qingzhong was upgraded to the divine name above the Golden and Jade genealogy. On the side of Lu Roshi, the king of Zhaihai with the divine name Clearwater, Mrs. Tundun is actually quite a bit airy. Although everyone has the same rank in the Confucian Temple, Mrs. Dandin is equivalent to standing on the top of the mountain. He was vaguely half a head taller than his colleagues. Only when he saw Wang Zhu he was like a maid who became a young lady who suddenly became rich and saw the real lady again. But flattered. In private, Huang Man and several servants of the Water Mansion guessed that the very old Mrs. Tan Dan had a handle on Wang Zhu's ancestors before the battle of beheading the dragon. After all, 3,000 years ago the unruly Long Jiao, because they belonged to the heroes of the ancient battle of ascending the sky, they were able to occupy the water circulation of the entire vast world. In later generations, all the Qi practitioners who practiced the water method, no matter what their origins, were mountain spirits, water monsters, or human race Qi practitioners. The owner of the water transport who walks the clouds and rains often has to respect and avoid a few points. Just about this matter no one dared to ask Wang Zhu. Dragons have reverse scales. Absolutely. Wang Zhu looked at the porcelain man who was completely indistinguishable from a real person. Where is that real Lu Bilong hiding now? Lu Bilong smiled and said, reporting to Shuijun, the cultivator of Wanyo's genealogy whose real name is Long Gong, is drinking tea at Tianmu Academy now. Huang Man's eyes lit up and it was not too big to watch the fun. He sat up and asked curiously, is that the Wanyao sect who owns the 3 mountains and blessed land? I remember that the sect master seems to be called Han Jiangshu. It is said that he is a very capable immortal, especially proficient. Together with the talisman there are many killers. Wang Zhu didn't care about an immortal cultivator. No matter how high his skills were, he was still just an immortal, a local snake in Tongye continent. Even if he is already a cultivator of Howren Mountain in the Ascension Realm, Wang Zhu has few eyes now. He is both conceited and confident. What's more, what if it is the 14th realm? He can be too. And it won't be too long. This is the only reason why Wang Zhu is willing to be the Lord of Donghai Sea. In the future when she retreats she has an identity and can be more secure. Her mortal enemy is only one person. Sword repair Qin Qinglu. On the way to the dragon-slaying battle, Qin Qinglu once took a break in the Lushwiking, and there was a mysterious sword refining that swallowed the East Sea. Of course Mrs. Tantan was forced by the situation and had no choice but to open the ban on the puddle, and actively invited the sword immortal to enter it. It's just that Wang Zhu has now regained his status as a real dragon. What are your so-called hardships as a last resort? In addition, Mrs. Tandan is different from Li Yeho and Lu Roshi. She was born from a demon clan and practiced the water method. Therefore she was born and restrained by the real dragon. But it doesn't matter except for Wang Zhu, and during the last discussion in the Confucian Temple, I met a few chat people who were enlightened. Long Zhenren, Fu Lu Yushuan, and Long Hushan Great Celestial Master Zhao Tianlai made Madame Dandin tremble. Besides, she was now in the Middle Earth and Divine Continent, and every time she went out to inspect the territory she was still very majestic. It's just that beyond this, there is still an unwarranted disaster that made Mrs. Tundun dumb to eat Huanglian, making her more and more unable to speak hard words on Wang Zhu's side. In the past, Taoist ancestors planted gourd vines and produced 7 sword-raising gourds. In the Taoist temple of Donghaiguan, the fire-burning boy of the master of Bixiao cave has a Do Liang, the golden gourd, which is slanted behind by the small Taoist boy. This stinky bull-nosed old Taoist, before going to the Qingming world, did a major event that had far-reaching influence on Howren water transportation. This was also the thing that Wang Zhu was most resentful about, because the old Guanzhou issued a decree to let that Taoist Tong carried the Dolyang gourd or invited or caught, and put almost all the East Sea flood dragons into that gourd. This was also the dragon resting stone under the name of Lushwiking, the reason why there was not a single dragon resting a few years ago. In addition, the old Taoist used the means of magic to reach the sky. The sea level was inclined, the northwest was high and the southeast was low, pouring into the Do volume. According to Wang Zhu's estimation, this stinky old man has taken away at least 10% of the water transport in the entire vast world. But on the side of the Confucian temple from the beginning to the end, it did not stop this matter. The water transport in the Qingming world was originally thin, and it was far inferior to the vast world. If the old man poured out the seawater in the gourd over there, the Qingming world could increase the water transport by 30%. Mrs. Tundun thought that the old Taoist priest of the Taoist temple in the East China Sea, what did it have to do with me? However, Wang Zhu asked her why she didn't stop him on the ferry that was going to the barren world through Guishu. Mrs. Tundun almost didn't collapse on the spot, but she felt that she was full of bitterness and did not dare to sway. My little aunt, you made me a cultivator of the Ascension realm. How could you stop a 14 realm who likes to be full and support his arm wrestling with Daozu? Wang Zhu stood up, walked out of the house and looked up at the sky. It's about to usher in a new three-religion debate. On this side of the vast world, the gods of the 5 sacred mountains in the Middle Earth and the 4 seas are all eligible to participate in the audition. The dispute between the 3 religions sit and discuss the Tao. The Haoran Confucian Temple, the Western Buddhist country and the Qingming world Baiyujing will each send gentlemen, sages, Taoists and Buddhists to participate in the debate. On the Confucian side, the young mountain chief of Hengku Academy, the close disciple of Yaxing Yuansu, will definitely participate. In the Qingming world, most of the disciples of Taoist ancestors and the young Taoist priest with the Taoist name Shanqing will also participate. The number of people who can participate in the Taoism of the 3 religions generally ranges from 3 to 9, and there is no set rule. This quarrel is not a group fight. The number of people is not important. Even in the long history of the 3 religions debate, it has been proved that a large number of people is useless. However, only one person was dispatched, which is also very rare. In the past 10,000 years, there have been only 3 times. The last 2 times. Once Qingming Tiantian sent Lu Qin, who left his hometown, and later Baiyujing was the 3rd headmaster. In that debate, Lu Qin spoke first and then no one spoke. The scholars and monks of the other 2 sects conceded defeat directly. Once, the Confucian temple led an unknown scholar who had only the reputation of scholar to participate in the debate. This person was the later Confucian scholar. In this debate, the scholar surnamed Sun finally spoke, and as a result many Taoists and Buddhist disciples turned to Confucianism. Therefore, the high-ranking landscape gods and top sects who have been reported by the Confucian temple today all have a common guess. For example, at the Confucian temple, will the close disciple of the old scholar be allowed to participate in this debate? A slender and highly respected Shanjun and a thin old scholar just stared at each other with big eyes and small eyes. The height difference between the 2 sides is huge and their heads are 1 head apart, so the old Xiaotsai stood on tiptoe with 2 pots of green iris under his arm. Ba, is this called stealing? It's called grabbing. The of Jui Mountain, his real name is Ning Yuan, his Taoist name is Yuguan, and his divine name is Kenggu. Ning Yuan stopped the Wenxing from going and said with a stern face, "Do you think it's suitable for you?" "I think it's appropriate." The old Xiaotsai nodded and said, "If you ask me to take another pot, it will be really inappropriate if you can't spare it. Brother Kenggu, don't pay attention to it. Whoever we are with depends on our relationship. Treat those vain heads, be polite to me, no offense, 2 pots of calamus are enough." Ning Yuan's face darkened. "The surname is Sun, you can almost get it, my temper is not much better than Sui Shan Zhou Yu." After drinking and chatting well just now, the old Xiaotsai said goodbye and left. As a result, the head of the Wenyun division hurried over and said that Mr. Wenxing took 2 pots of Wenyun calamus, and swaggered out of the garden. "See you all the way. People say that it was given by you, Mr. Shan." The old Xiaotsai thought for a while and began to understand and reason with his emotions. "Kenggu, you can't be a man without a conscience, talk about it yourself, this is the best book in Jui Mountain. Where did you come from?" There are many monuments and monuments in Jui Mountain. Among the countless famous mountains, it is only inferior to Zhongyue Sui Mountain. Moreover, Bai Yi never left a poem on the cliff in Sui Mountain, but he wrote several poems at a time in Jui Mountain, just because Bai Yi once climbed the mountain with Lu Shilu. It is said that under Lu Shilia's suggestion, Bai Yi it is so generous with pen and ink and talent. And the reason why Lu Shilu is like this is that Song Wu, the of Jui Mountain, not only highly praised the master's knowledge, but most importantly, the master had personally leaked something, saying that this Ning Yuan was very insightful and praised himself as he is a very hard-working person, so his articles are the most ancient, which is nothing. Now that Mr. is a little famous, such good words can be picked up everywhere on the street. However, Ning Yuan's opinion is worth chewing. He said that my old scholars' articles such as the sun, the moon, the stars, the latitude, the world, and the world, are all known to admire their wisdom. Your disciple, the embroidered tiger Cui Isa otherwise, the Tao is like the vitality walking in chaos and all things come from it and do not know it. Mr. is always like this, never mind that others praise his students, even if the evaluation is even higher than himself. You can praise me, the old scholar, and be happy. Whoever takes it seriously is an idiot, but if anyone praises my students and speaks sincerity, then my old scholar will take it seriously. Ning Yuan said helplessly, anyway, keep a pot. The old show just burped. Ning Yuan said in a muffled voice, it's a big deal, I'll change a pot for you. It's less than 3,000 years and there are 2,000 years. In fact, the of Jui Mountain, the last time Wenxing restored the Confucian temple, he went to the Gongda forest to congratulate him, and he sent a pot of Wenyun calamus for thousands of years. In the officialdom there are some concerns, otherwise because of Ning Yuan's personal friendship with the old scholar, it would not be a problem to give away a pot of 3,000-year-old calamus at that time. This is the same as the Yamashita market package money. If congratulations to guests of similar family background, if they are all red envelopes of 1 tael, and there is a person who insists on paying 10 taels, it is a slap in the face of others. On the other hand, the Yanji Mountain female monarch did not have these taboos, and the gift she gave was the most valuable at that time and she had her own reasons for it. The old Xiuzai complained, the wine table is afraid of persuading people to drink and being a person is afraid of being stingy. What a bold-hearted brother Kangwu in my impression, if you are twitching today I will look down on you. Kangwu God smiled angrily. Before you didn't let your beloved disciple climb the mountain, it's just that outsiders don't know the truth. They think I'm putting on airs. Why are you pretending to be stupid with me? Drilling pot umbrella, chain, teaching, chanting the old Xiuzai is so troubled. In the end he is still angry and protects the calf unreasonably. Previously Jui Mountain did not let Chen Pingon climb the mountain. The old Xiuzai wondered, what's the truth? Don't ask me what you know. The old Xiuzai said angrily, if you insist on saying that, I won't be happy to listen to it. Let me have a good chat with you. It's the meaning of the most holy teacher, don't play stupid with me. Then you call the most holy master over, I will confront the old man face to face and check the truth. Song Wu smiled wryly, is there such a rogue as you? As a result, someone pressed the shoulder of the old Xiuzai, how to confront, talk about it. The old scholar turned his head to look, oh, it is the most holy teacher. With a tilt of his shoulders and a twist of his toes, the old scholar turned around and stood beside the most holy master, with 2 pots of iris under his arm and said seriously, God Kangwu wants to give me 3 pots of iris. I said no. Kangwu's supernatural power is not happy anymore, blocking the way and not letting me go. Ning Yuan bowed and saluted with the most holy teacher. The most holy master smiled and nodded in greeting and moved first, and the old Xiuzai immediately followed. Ning Yuan hesitated for a moment, then the old Xiuzai turned his head and winked at him, don't stick there, keep up. The most holy teacher said, are there any plans? The old show was embarrassed and said, forget it. The most holy teacher smiled and said, you have self-knowledge. Qin Pingon was not recommended to participate in the 3 teachings debate. The old Xiuzai said, after all he is still young and he is busy now. Here in the Confucian temple don't always bother people. As he said that, he handed over 2 pots of calamus to God Lord Kangwu, saying that he would help hold them first. The old Xiuzai rolled up his 2 sleeves and put on a fighting stance. It's really not good if you have to win, let me come. Song Wu's face was full of doubts. The debate about the 3 religions is a matter of rules, and those who have attained the fruit of Taoism are not allowed to participate in the debate. In the end, I only heard the old Xiuzai say, anyway, it is not the first time to remove the position. When I win the fight I will move back. Ning Yuan took a deep breath. Even the most holy teachers are too lazy to talk. The old Xiuzai sighed, in the colorful world I talked to the little monk twice. It is true that Buddhism is profound. I think that the younger generation of scholars in Howren world, no one can quarrel with him. The most holy teacher said, what if Li Shixing would participate in the debate? The old Xiaotsai touched his chin and gave a fair sentence. Compared to the kind of guaranteed victory I participated in the debate, it is slightly inferior. The most holy teacher smiled and said, "You accompany me to Xiaozhou." The old scholar suddenly grabbed the arm of the most holy teacher. No hurry, go later." The holy master patted the back of the old scholar's hand and signaled to let go. "Doesn't matter, it doesn't work at all." The most holy master raised his hand and slapped it down. The old Xiaotsai still did not let go, but instead increased his strength. In ancient music there is Xiao, and the master said that it is all beautiful and it is also perfect. The most holy master said angrily, "Sun, don't force me to curse." The old Xiaotsai let go of his hand, his face full of sadness, and muttered, "Scholars in the world, we scholars, never need a tall clay statue, we need someone to look at all the mistakes and corrections of our scholars." The most holy teacher smiled and said, "The future is terrible, how can I know that the one who comes is not now?" The old Xiaotsai rubbed his chin, nodded and whispered, "I've won the prize, am embarrassed, but I can't let Li Sheng and Yisheng listen." Then God Lord Qinggu heard a sentence from the most holy master. The three-character classic. This seems to be the first time Qin Pingon has set foot in this state city of Chuzhou. Chuzhou, Baoxi County and Pingnan County, the prefecture and county seat are in the same city, among which Baoxi County government the list is black and gold. At first glance, it is the handwriting of the Tianshui Zhao family owner, regular script with a little bit of ancient style charm. At first glance it is strict and meticulous, but if you look closely there is freedom in the rules. Qin Pingon came to see a friend whom he had not known for a long time, Jing Quan, the new governor of Baoxi County, and Shi Longzhong, the former Qing official of the Ministry of Officials in the capital. Friends of friends may not be able to become friends, but Qin Pingon feels honored to be friends with a real scholar like Jing Quan. Nowadays the officialdoms of Zhenchuzu, the big and small government offices, do not have access control. As for the origin of this tradition, there are two theories. One is from Yuan Zhengding's Longquan County Prefect government, and it is also said that it was originally from Chao Jiangxin's tenure in office. The kiln inspection and manufacturing office began. According to the drunkard's supervision, the people of the small town would just stroll around as long as they did not come to the supervision and manufacturing office to dry the millet, and the officials had nowhere to go. It is also negotiable. Once a child's broken paper kite fell into the government office, and Chao Duzhao sent it to the house himself, but some people said that it was because the little baby wearing open crotch pants had a sister who was very handsome. Chao Duzhao, the drunkard's intention is not the wine. An official like Chao Duzhao did not seem to have left many Qingming political achievements worthy of writing in the county annals, but perhaps to the people of the small town, the impression of Dali officials was one more, and impression is good. In short, after that, the top and bottom worked, starting from Huaihuang County office, and over time, it became a customary official rule in the entire old Longzhou, and Wei Li the prefect had no objection to this. Just because you can enter the yamen casually does not mean that you can casually visit the yamen's office. Knowing that it was Lord Qin Shanzhu from Luopao Mountain who came to visit, someone immediately notified Master Jing. The pile of books and books made people busy. Jing Quan, who was wearing a public uniform, rubbed his eyes, put down an official document in his hand about the defense of rivers and canals within the jurisdiction, and quickly walked out of the office of the government office. When he saw Qin Pingon, the county lord Shou just clasped his fists and didn't say any polite words, but the smile on his face was not too small. Qin Pingon raised his hands and joked, "I came to the top of the mountain with empty hands. When I turn back to Lord Jing to go to Luopa Mountain to drink, I will punish myself for 3 cups first." Jing Quan quickly waved his hand and said, "It's no problem to go to Luopa Mountain to sit and drink tea. It's good to drink tea. Don't mention drinking to me now, Mr. Qin. Last time I was in Changpu River it was choking. I can smell alcohol now. It's a headache." Qin Pingon said, "I'm just here to hang out so I won't delay Brother Jing's business, right?" Jing Quan said, "To be polite as a county official, today I hang out with Mr. Qin all day long, and it's all official business. But let's be honest, the government office is not very good at hospitality, and it takes 2/4 of an hour to sneak around. Not a problem at all." Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Then take me around the government office? 2/4 of an hour is enough." Jing Quanshao had an accident, but this is nothing, it is not an exception. To be honest, no matter how many identities Mr. Qin has, his background is still a Confucian student. Although the two sides had only met twice and drank a meal, Jing Quan was very sure of his feeling. After that, Jing Quan took Chen Pingon to visit many public houses of a government office. Along the way, Chen Pingon also asked about many details such as schools, ceremonies and delivery. Fortunately, Jing Quan was a very diligent and good at it. Officials who investigate trivial details may not be able to answer those tricky questions on the spot. As soon as I asked and answered, the 2/4 of time passed quickly. Chen Pingon also visited a government office, so he said goodbye and left, only to invite brother Jing to go to Luopao Mountain for a drink in his spare time. He came cook by yourself, do not persuade you to drink at the table. Next I asked Pingnan County, now the first county of Baoshi County, if the new magistrate was called Fu Hu from the post office under the jurisdiction of the Department of Vehicles and Drivers of the Beijing Military Department. Jing Quan nodded and said yes, and also said that this person was the younger brother of Fu Yu, the former chief of Baoshi County. Because the county seat was in the same city, Jing Quan often met with this subordinate, but for the time being he could not see the government of the chief county chief. Pros and cons. Chen Pingon left the government office and took up the post of Fu Yu, the prefect of Baoshi County. He was a son of a family in the capital. He was the first to come to a small town with Wu Yuan. He was the first official to enter the world of Lizhu Cave. Zhan Shiyuan is the young master of Zhan Shiyuan, who is in charge of Zhou Chunfeng and is a first-class official. It is a pity that Fu Yu was not a scholar in the field of science, and the Hanlin Academy has never put a seed brother into the battlefield like Lu Xuanmei. The lack of these two kinds of resumes will be a major obstacle to Fu Ye's future promotion. In Pingnan County, there is a meandering river crossing the border. There are boats on the river punting boats to fish. When bamboo shoots are drawn in the mountains, the spring rises and adds water. Today, Fu Hu had just finished an official business, and was not in a hurry to return to the county office, so he let a few assistant officials and subordinates go home first, and sat alone by the river to start fishing. The elder brother Fu Yu was just 1 year older than Fu Hu. The eldest brother is the father, and Fu Yu has a smooth career in his career, so Fu Hu is very afraid of this elder brother who is always unsmiling. After all, the leader of the Good News Office is only a 7th-ranking person, and he is also a small yamen without real power. Compared with the Nangxinfang, which is full of Longzhong, it is one day and one place. Fu Hu held a pole in one hand and a suet jade handle in the other hand, rubbing lightly with the palm of his hand. This time I went to Beijing to serve as an official and left the Chinstrap Alley that I thought I would stay for a few more years. It belongs to Pingtiao, but Chuzhou is originally Shangzhou of Dali, and Pingnan County belongs to Xianxian County of Dali Dynasty. To be the parent officer of this county is of course a matter of reuse. Fu Hu and the magistrate of Huaihuang County, even when they went to the governor's mansion and talked to several prefects, could be louder. When the official document was delivered to the Good News Office, Fu Hu, who was living leisurely there, was confused. At first he mistakenly thought it was his father or elder brother Fu Yu. He secretly worked hard to help with the operation and only got such a place. Real shortage. As a result, after having a New Year's Eve dinner and staying up all night with Fu Yu to watch the New Year, Fu Hu summoned the courage to take the initiative to ask about the matter. But his brother shook his head and said that it was not his and his family's actions. Without this ability, with a few words, you can decide a candidate for the county magistrate of Delishang. In the end, Fu Hu was confused and came to Pingnan County, the prefecture, to take office, with many mountains and bamboo forests under his jurisdiction. Out of the corner of Fu Hu's eyes, he caught a glimpse of a man in a blue shirt with a hosta on his head. He was carrying a fishing rod and a fish basket around his waist. He came slowly. The other party picked an adjacent fishing spot. As a connoisseur, Fu Hu doesn't care about this. The world's fishermen are one family. As long as this guy doesn't get jealous of his catch, he just throws rocks in the water. It seems that the other party is half a bucket of water. After throwing the rod and baiting for a long time, no fish has been hooked. The main reason is that he was a little anxious when he raised the rod a few times. Who squatted here, craned his neck and glanced at the fish basket, and then looked at Fu Hu. Both of them understood. They understood it instantly and nodded each other without talking nonsense. Take out a few fish and give them to this fellow who met by chance but is not very good at fishing. In this way you can go home and be less scolded. After all, as long as you don't come home empty-handed, you can still blame the fish for being in a bad mood, which has little to do with your fishing skills. The man began to look for words. Brother, you are very particular about tying the fishing line. I haven't seen it before. From the beginning, it was a big herring that weighed 30 to 50 kilograms. Fu Hu smiled and said, "Want to learn?" The man nodded and said, "As long as my brother is willing to teach, I will learn." Fu Hu simply closed the rod and explained the tricks of the knot with this person in detail. Fu Hu then threw the rod into the water again and found that this guy didn't want to go back and continue fishing, so he couldn't help but smile and asked, "Brother, don't worry, I'll rewind the rod later and I'll let you pick 2 bigger tails." "You, what kind of thing do you keep staring at me like that, afraid that I will run away with the fish basket?" "Not really." The man squatting beside him smiled and said, "There are 3 realms in fishing. I like to fish but I can't catch fish. Every time I fish I always get a reward. You can't ask for it, it depends on the talent of the fisherman." Fu Hu smiled and said, "Oh? There is a higher realm. How to say it, brother, please talk about it." The man said solemnly, "Rather than fishing, I prefer watching people fishing." Fu Hu gave a thumbs up, laughed and said, "Being around the bush, it turns out to be bragging, my brother can do it. The children of the capital, there are those who are arrogant and there are those who are like Fu Hu. In Fu Hu's words, they just rely on their ancestors to make a living, and they only make fun of ordinary people all day long and lose their share." The man asked, "Listen to my brother's accent, it's not like our locals." Fu Hu nodded and said, "He came from the capital doing some small business, eating and waiting to die. What about you, brother, where are you from?" "From Huaihuang County, come here to visit relatives." "Huaihuang County? It's not too close to our Pingnan County." "It's nothing. I used to be a kiln worker and I often went up the mountain to chop wood and burn charcoal. I walked these few steps without breathing." Fu Hu smiled and said, "Brother, chatting is better than fishing. That person is also a good-natured person, and when he was ridiculed he squatted there foolishly." Fu Hu felt that this buddy could handle it. Fu Hu asked, "My surname is Fu, Master Longjiao's Fu, where's my brother?" The man smiled and replied, "My surname is Qin, Erdong Qin." Fu Hu's family background is not good enough for him to have family retinues. The family worship is naturally there, but where can he get Fu Hu, even his elder brother Fu Yu? Except for long trips, he is usually not in the capital. He would follow a chi trainer every day. Besides, in this state Fu Hu was also a 7th-rank official, so what was he afraid of? That being the case, what kind of arrogance is it? The people who are really qualified to walk sideways are Chao Gingxin and Lu Xuanmei. They care about Qi Lane and Cheer Street. As for Fu Hu, as long as it is a job that can kill time such as fishing and pigeon whistle, Fu Hu likes it, and it is typical of not doing a proper job. Qin Pingon said, "We are in Chuzhou, which is a good place to be promoted easily. The older generation said that there are enough officials here, they can produce high-ranking officials and they have a good reputation." Fu Hu pouted. "It's said that the old Longzhou, now the new Chuzhou, officials at all levels are shrewd and capable. If you want me to see it, it's true, huh?" Qin Pingon smiled and said, "That's it." Fu Hu waved his hand. "Don't talk about this, brother, you common man. I'm a businessman covered in copper stench. Why don't you just have enough to eat and support yourself?" Qin Pingon said, "I guess what brother Fu is saying is that officials at all levels in Chuzhou are too good at being an official? Do you take being an official too seriously in your bones? He also does things and he does it better than other officials. It's just that the official flavor is heavy and the official authority in the bones is so powerful that people always feel that something is wrong. Just like the fishing line that brother Fu taught me to tie the knots, which are interlocked." Fu Hu turned his head to look at the man who was visiting relatives. He had slightly white hair and looked young, so it was not easy to determine his true age. Fu Hu smiled and said casually, "Probably not, and I can't do it. Good luck to the official, right?" Qin Pingon nodded. "Brother Fu can think so, it's a pity not to be a county magistrate." Fu Hu hesitated for a moment and said, "Brother Qin, we have a good relationship, so I'll get to the bottom of it with you, and I just lied to you. In fact, I was a clerk in the county government's gate and the people of the capital didn't lie to you. The last errand was in a place called Yujiojibo, sitting on a cold bench. I have never heard of it, bro, the yaman can hear it. The biggest official hat is the 7th grade, the sesame official mentioned in the play. It's not taboo to make deep conversations." Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Brother Fu's speech is also funny and his fishing skills are generally good." Fu Hu said lazily, "Being a good official, I don't dare to expect too much. When I am an honest official, I dare to say it with my conscience." But then the local people surnamed Chen said something that made Fu Hu's scalp go numb. Just listening to the man's calm expression looking at the river, he said, "The merits and demerits are divided, and Wei Li, the prefect, is actually dereliction of duty. It is not a matter but an education. Arresting thieves, river channels and other matters, Wei Li as the chief official of a state, of course has to manage it well. Responsibilities, this is precisely what the capital inspection plan and local evaluation cannot be specifically quantified. It may be possible to see some clues through the addition of several disciplines and Xianxia in one state, but it is still far from enough. The county governor seems to be an official who is close to the people is actually not the case. As a senior official of the frontier, the governor is not a big deal. At the end of the year he does not see many ordinary people. Although his responsibility lies in supervising, leading, coordinating and reconciling, he is only a court official. Officials run from top to bottom, and officials at the 3 levels of the state, county and county can't take it easy. Everyone only works being an official. Otherwise, if I look at it, a government office with more capable and fast-running officials is hidden. The better the ability to cover up mistakes, the more unknowing the people are wronged. In the place where the officials are arrogant, at least everyone knows that they are wronged, and when others see it, their hearts are like a mirror. But in this prefecture or in the future prefecture, it's hard to say. For example, if a car is driving across the road, someone will follow behind the car to help smooth the traces. If the chief official does not want to be known, people will not know it. The imperial palace above, the people below will not know that only officials, colleagues and superiors and subordinates have a tacit understanding. Just like you and I just looked at each other, you will know what the rules are. So I can assert that if the future Dali court is a larger Chuzhou officialdom, which is very problematic. In this matter, the former prefect Wei Li left an invisible mess to Wu Yuan. Fu Hu was speechless. What shocked him was not that the other party called Wei Li and Wu Yuan one by one, calling them by their first names or even their opinions. To be honest, in official circles in the capital, it is said that the good news office where he is the number 1 in private who is not speaking, shut the door and scolding a few books of the 6 books. The smaller the yamen, the more trustworthy colleagues there are every day. Fu Hu especially liked to talk about this with that stuffy gourd Lin Jingqing. So what really shocked Fu Hu was that this person's remarks happened to hit on one of Fu Hu's thoughts, and finally let him understand what was wrong. Not long ago, an official in charge of culture and education in the provincial governor's office called out all the county's educational ordinances in the prefectures and counties in Xianxia, roughly meaning that the governor attaches great importance to this matter, and made a special trip to spare the whole afternoon to invite everyone to go to the office to chat talking to each other. Lord Prefect said that everyone can speak freely, talk more about questions, give more opinions and talk more about dissatisfaction. These are nothing, but what made Fu Hu, who was also present at the time, feel awkward the most was that official Lin Lin. I said that such opportunities are not common in other places in previous years. All of you are scholars, you should cherish this opportunity. I was fortunate to meet the governor, and my words should be as concise and to the point as possible. Lord Prefect is busy with official business. Fu Hu did not doubt the intentions of the 5th-rank local official, and there was definitely no malicious intent. But it was precisely the official flavor of the other party, the kind of official atmosphere that naturally felt that official rank and rank were everything. In the capital, he was accustomed to seeing the nobles of the imperial court and the majesty of high officials, and he felt extremely uncomfortable. After finally regaining his senses, Fu Hu smiled bitterly and said, "Mother, Brother Chen, don't talk nonsense like this, just say it, it's just the 2 of us here, even if you said I've heard it before, pretend nothing happened and don't spread the word. You are a common man, you can take it seriously, and I don't care whether you are more daring and more ambitious, or whether you like to talk about it after reading a few books. But I, Fu Hu, are a serious county magistrate anyway. Although I certainly won't be convicted for my words, but after being listened to by my colleagues in the officialdom, I can't be wearing shoes all year round." Seeing that man smile, Fu Hu felt more and more beating drums in his heart. Could it be that he was on the mountain? After all, in this state, there are indeed many immortals practicing Taoism on the mountain. Fu Hu said, "Speaking of which, Brother Chen, it'll take your knowledge and courage. If you are going to be an official, you must be a county magistrate. You have to start with the government." Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Brother Fu's vision is better than his fishing skills." Fu Hu was overjoyed, no longer so tense. Next, I saw the man squatting with his hands in his sleeves and said softly, "Brother Fu, I don't think this is right, it's far from good enough, what do you think?" Fu Hu sighed, "Brother Chen, are you still here? Then I really have to persuade you." The man took the initiative to answer, "Don't worry about eating radishes? In front of ordinary people, with the mind of an upright official in the court?" Fu Hu burst out laughing, stretched out his hand and patted the man's shoulder. "It's good to know, it's good to know. Brother Fu, have you ever heard of Mr. Nanfeng?" Fu Hu shook his head. He didn't like to read miscellaneous books when he was a child, and dealing with those classics in the field was already tiring enough. "Then I recommend a few articles of this old gentleman to you. I think you will like them. The Relief of Zhao Gong of Yuezhou, and The History of Yihuang County. I think these are the best moral articles in the world, of course. This is just my personal opinion." Fu Hu said helplessly, all right, I'll look it up when I have time. Why are you being serious with me?" The next person, surnamed Chen, was very welcome. He picked up Fu Hu's fish basket and started moving fish. "Well, it is estimated that he is a poor scholar who is relatively unlucky in the imperial examination." "A sour scholar?" Thanks to myself, I felt that the other party was a cultivator on the mountain. Fu Hu couldn't help but joked. "Brother Chen, Lord Wei is now a high-ranking official in the capital, and the new governor, Lord Wu, is even more powerful. If you have the opportunity to see them in the future, do you dare to say these words in person?" The man with the long coat and cloth shoes had already walked to his position, holding a fishing rod, tied the fish basket around his waist and said with a smile, "That is to say, it is a pleasure for us to squat and chat. Instead of Wei Li and Wu Yuan, I will sit and talk about these principles and they have to stand and listen." Hearing that, Fu Hu was speechless again and gave the guy a thumbs up. "Good guy, you are so arrogant. Your surname is Chen, why isn't it called Qin Pingon? Speaking of this, I, Fu Hu, are convinced, but Brother Chen, you are higher. Brother Fu is welcome to visit Luo Pao Mountain. My family has a Yellow Lake Mountain and the fish are bigger." The man waved goodbye to Fu Hu and said with a smile, "By the way, my name is Qin Pingon, Dong Chen Ping 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 Ping."